hello again, everyone is right. We're back at it. We're back at it with the text messages. I left off on April of 2021. We are reading over the Mackenzie, Shirilla, and Dom text messages. This is not the first time I do this here. So if you are rewatching with me, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that support. And if you are not and you're new, welcome. I am glad you are here. I love having all new people from other platforms. I can tell that a lot of them come here, and I appreciate that. People from X and TikTok. Do make sure you follow me on those platforms as well. I am Ellie. Welcome to my house. Like I said, we have already read these. There's already a playlist with all of the readings. We did this back in early of 2025. I have been deep into this case since like late 2024. So before the documentary dropped. And now I think it was January we started again because I wanted to go through and see what we missed. And then I found out that a documentary was dropping. And now we're here. So we have been covering a lot of Mackenzie Shirilla. I will be dropping a lot of phone calls too. If you've heard them already, oh well, hear them again with me. I will be dropping a lot of those. And we will be doing a members only tomorrow regarding the Kenzie case. So if you can, that is a great way to help the channel. I'm going to get right into it. We left off on April of 2021. I will make sure I say hi to everyone. I know all the new members here became members in the last live, so I appreciate that. Karen, Shelby, an expert. I see Debbie in here, Evie, ATS, Trisha, JR, Glenda, MSM, Crees, Montana, Fancy Pants, Miss BS, Eric, hello, good to see everyone. Okay, and I saw Debbie in here too. Okay, let's get started. Let's get right into it. Oh, before I do get started, I just want to say I know a lot of people feel like it's an invasion of privacy that we're going through these text messages, but I don't think so. I think if anything, it helps prove Mackenzie's character. We want to remain as respectful as we can. I know there's a lot of things going on with both sides, both parties. And by that I mean Kenzie and Dom. So I just want to make sure that we just remain respectful and let me know what you think as we are reading them. We are just reading and discussing. So we will be having conversations about it. Let me pull up the text messages now. Here we go. This is where we left off. Here from JFK. Thank you. That's awesome. Is there justice? Thank you. I don't think so either, but to each their own. The more I hear, the more I really despise her, says Evie. That's awesome. We love JFK here. I've been watching old text videos, but I'm loving the comparisons with all the stuff we've seen lately. Yeah. The gang's here. Needy. Oh, I haven't covered the JLR stuff in a minute too. I know I've been like slacking on other cases. So maybe this weekend we'll start getting caught up into everything else. There's a couple things that I wanted to do updates on. Thank you, Surviving Out Loud, for becoming a new member. Great way to support. I really appreciate that. And hello, Michelle, made 2 lives today. Yes, I went on a little earlier. I'm trying to feel you guys out. Like, when do you want the lives, the Kenzie readings? Because we're only in April, so we have over a year to go in terms of text readings, but I could do a month per live if I have the time. So let's get started. We left off on April 1st. I know they were saying goodnight to each other. She says, Bet, I'm going to come now. She says, good night, babe. Dom says, good night. Next morning on April 1st, Kenzie says at 8:31, hit me up when you're up. She says, why you leave me on red? She says, LOL, question mark. She says, I hope you're just in the shower or something. So again, controlling. Dom says, I just got up. She says, oh, I was confused AF because it said you left me on red. Dom says, I don't know. I probably opened my phone or something while I was asleep. I woke up for like a couple minutes, then went back to bed. Kenzie says, LMAO, it's okay. Want to hang in like 30 minutes? She says, "So you have time to wake up and shit?" Dom says, "I need more time than that, LOL." She says, "One?" It's already 12:19. He says, "Let me do some of my productive shit because I have in a couple of days and then I'll hit your line." She says, "Okay, bet." Then she says, "We're going to Baskin Robbins today, though, LMAO." Dom says, "Okay." Then she says at 2:06, so like an hour later, "What are you doing?" He says, running somewhere with Smeesh." She says, "That sounds fun. I'm watching Shameless and cleaning, LOL." Dom says, "That sounds pretty chill." She says, "Low key bored. Do you think you're going to be done?" She says, "I want to go to Baskin Robbins before it's closed." Okay, so have your mom take you, dude. Prepare yourself. Some months are longer than others. That is true. Um, yeah, prepare yourself, Evie. She says, "I want to go to Baskin Robbins before it's closed." Dom says, "When is it closed? I'm chilling with Angelo and Ashish just left." Kenzie says, "Can we hang in 30 minutes?" She says, "I'll look right now. The website says hours are unknown because of Corona." She spells Corona CAR. This is one thing I can't deal with her spelling skills. Trying to think where Baskin is in Strongsville. Have your mom take you, dude. Like, Dom says, "Do you think it's closed?" He says, "You want to just make a cake and ice cream?" Kenzie says, "LOL, sure." Dom says, "For Ashish's birthday?" Kenzie says, "Is it really his birthday or another fake one?" Dom says, "Yeah, it is." She says, "Oh shit, really?" He says, "He has to leave 2 to 3 hours. He's going to come back. I think we got time to make it." She says, "Oh, okay. Can I come over now or soon?" Question mark, question mark. He doesn't respond. She says, "Babe?" More question marks. He says, "Yeah, come over at 4:23 p.m." She says, "KK, I'm on my way." That's 4:23 p.m. Then she says at 5:46 p.m., "I'm mad as fuck. Shake my effing head." Dom says, "Why?" She says, "N word." When I say N word, you know what I mean. You can read for yourself. These are public documents. It is information. You can find yourself out there. We are not meaning no harm. This is just the way she talked all trashy. She says, "N word, why?" "Because you invite me over to hang and say we're going to make a cake instead of go to Baskin Robbins. Then you just play basketball. Like, it's cold. You think I want to be out there when I can't feel my fucking hands? And I asked you like 20 times to do something else." Dom says, "What you want to do? My mom just made the cake." "My bad." She says, "We can literally do anything you want, just not be outside." Like, I'm getting salty AF. Dom says, "Why would you just want to be inside when you can be outside?" Kenzie said, "I said it's cold like 300 times. If I'm shaking when I go outside, it's not nice out. Like, WTF, come into the house." Dom doesn't respond. She says, "I'm bored, for real." Dom says, "What time do you got to be home?" She says, "Why?" Dom says, "Because we could just leave sooner and go to my house. And then I can go back to Kyle's when you leave." She says, "Oh, 2." I think she meant 12. She says, "Are you going to drink?" Dom says, "When?" She says, "I don't want to be around AJ low key at 11:32 p.m." She says, "Why are you drinking?" "I don't want to hit the wood now because AJ hit it." Dom says, "LOL." Kenzie says, "Contaminated. Can we leave?" Dom says, "It's just a sip of tea." She says, "And bring the wood." Dom says, "Not right now." She says, "Why?" Dom says, "Can we stay till 12 and then I can drop you off?" Kenzie says, "Drop me off where?" Question mark, question mark, question mark. He says, "Your house. I want to chill with Angela and Smeesh." Kenzie says, "I can't be there." Dom says, "And then them there, you know." She says, "And we didn't even get to chill alone at all today." She says, "Yeah, that's true." Dom says, "I'm sorry. I didn't know that was a big deal." She says, "I mean, I'd like some time with you to just chill and have fun. Just me and you. It's whatever." Dom says, I'm sorry, next time we chill, I'll make sure we're alone. For a little. She says, tomorrow after my nail appointment, question mark, then we can go to Baskin Robbins. Can you send me your mom's number, please? I don't know where the nail place is, she says the next day. Dom says, are you still up at 1:08 a.m.? She says, I am now. Ooh. Then she says at 10:38, babe, if you're up, can you make sure I get the address to the nail place? I texted your mom, but she didn't answer. But I think there's a green post-it note with the Addy. No response. She says, why did you make it so I can't see if you're active? She removes an exclamation mark from her text. She says, you need to answer me so I know where I'm going. She emphasizes her message. Dom says, I was sleeping at 11:29 a.m. I'm up now, though. Kenzie says, your mom texted back. But yeah, why did you turn off that active thing? And how was last night? 21 questions from my boyfriend. No thanks. What are you, the police? Hey, Song Spy, it's Laura. Thanks, Melly and Chat, for keeping me company. Hey, Elsie, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Wait, you're live again? Dang, girl. Yeah, like sign. Prefer a good question. Does anyone think Dom grabbed phone while she was asleep at Paul's and saw things that upset Dom? Yes, I want to talk about this in the members only tomorrow. We're going to share our feelings in the members only. We're going to get into it because I have a lot of thoughts now after reviewing everything. And rethinking everything. Kenzie says, Dom sends a screenshot. He says, for YKTV, I don't know what that means. He says GOMD. So for those of you who don't know, GOMD means get off my dick. Yeah, I didn't make that up. That's just what it means, I think. So Dom says GOMD because he says LMAO. GOMD, get off my dick, right? LMAO. Dom says, yeah. She says, well, how was last night? Dom says, kicked it for a little bit, then crashed. Kenzie says, I'm biting my nails off. She says, babe, Insta. She says, I might not be able to get Burberry. I might have to get pink. Dom says, okay, get that. She says, you sure? She says, Insta. Help me, please. French tip again? She questions her own message. Dom says, sure. She says, okay. Sends a picture of French tips. How to get her nails done. Dom says, those are dope. She says, get that or black French tip. Dom doesn't answer. She says, Dom. She questions her own message. She says, please answer. Dom says, yeah. She says, what one? LOL. Dom says, what do you mean, which one? Kenzie says, I'll talk to you later at 2:56 p.m. She says, let's get Baskin after my appointment. And that was at 2:59 p.m. Then at 3:09, she says, Dom. He says, can I chill with Kyle at 5? Why are you even asking her, dude? Oh, I hate this. I hate when he started asking her if he could go do things. Is that not like psycho? I'm sorry. And if that's you, baby boo, I love and accept you for who you are, but get it together. Asking your partner like if I can go to the dollar store or to McDonald's, not cool. So asking your partner for permission. I guess maybe things we were different. I don't know. He says, can I chill with Kyle at 5? She says, you're going to be there all night. Then we have no time to hang. And you said we would chill today, just me and you. Dom says, I always say probably. Here's the thing, though. Kristen has work, so just me and Kyle can chill. Or you can chill with me till 5. She says, that's cool. She says, after my nail appointment, I'm coming over then. I guess maybe it's different when I think, like, I wish he wasn't asking her, you know? That Kenzie's not the one who should be calling the shots here. Yeah. She says, "Okay, then leave it like 5." Dom says, "Okay, then leave it like 5 or like 5:30." Kenzie says, "Yeah, LOL, bet." Dom says, "'Cause that's not a lot of time." Kenzie says, "I'm gonna come soon." She says, "I'm on my way. From Brunswick, though. I thought it was just gonna be me and you." Dom says, "Sorry. Jimbo went to Blair's house, so Blair brought him back." She says, "How? Yesterday you said it would just be me and you chilling today. When you're around your friends, you don't give me hugs or kissies. Like, I only have 1 hour with you today." She sends 5 question marks. More question marks. Dom says, "I told you what happened." Kenzie says, "He can leave. You can say you have runs and then just hang with me alone." Dom says, "No." Kenzie says, "Just don't forget to text me if you dip to Kyle's." She says, "Sorry for being annoying. I really wanted alone time with you." Dom says, "I accept your apology," at 6:14 p.m. He says, "Kyle just stopped answering. So did my dude." Kenzie said, "Thanks, babe." And WTF. That's so annoying. She says, "Bruh, I'm watching Shameless and Debbie is pregnant." Then she says, "Yo," at 7:28. "Text back, babe." She says, "Do you think you're going to be free?" She questions her own message. Dom doesn't respond. She says, "Babe, you said you wouldn't ignore me." Dom says, "I was driving, my bad." Kenzie says, "It's okay, babe. Do you think you will be free soon?" Dom doesn't respond. She says, "Dom, you said you wouldn't ignore me." She questions her own message again. Dom says, "My bad. We're going to hell." She says, "N word without me?" Wow. Whatever. Dom says, "No, not hell, the other hell." He says, "Okay, whatever. I don't care." Kenzie says, "You should care. That's the type of shit that makes me so upset after you didn't want to do anything with me today. Then when I dip, you're in the mood for anything. So I'm guessing you're not coming back tonight." Dom says, "No, I'm not." Kenzie says, "Can we do Baskin Robbins tomorrow then?" She says, "Get off D&D, please," at 10:30. So he has now officially been put her on do not disturb. It's a thing, so get used to it. Ooh, I'm gonna read some of these comments. Insecure attachment alert. She never wants him to be with anyone else. Do people get this obsessed? I don't know. I guess introduce me to someone so I can that I would be this obsessed with. Hey, bye. Adam and Souza says Christine Russo and Hench partially to blame here. If they got the crash warning, why did they not warn police or authorities 2 weeks before? Kenzie is a P and murdered and had stupid parents, didn't teach her right from wrong. I love Shameless. Yeah, I know. I've only seen some of it. Yes, Aaron, I'm live again. She says, "Get off D&D too, please." She says, "Babe?" Question mark, question mark, question mark. She says, "I'm just gonna go to bed probably. Have fun, baby. We can just go to basket tomorrow. Good night," at 11:26 p.m. Dom says, "Okay." She said, "Say good night, babe. And send kissy." Dom says, "Good night." She sends an emoji. Nice reply. She says at 5:30 a.m., "I can't sleep. I'm gonna freak out. I hate my nails so much. Like they fucking hurt and they're ugly AF. Text me when you're up," she says at 9:54 a.m. Dom says, "They can't be that bad." She says, "I don't know. I'm stressed." She says, "Want to go to basket at 1? Please, babe. And my nails are crooked. They hurt bad AF." Dom doesn't respond. She says, "Dom, answer. Please answer right now." Dom says, "I'm sleeping." She says, "I didn't know. I thought you were up." "What? When you're up, let me come over. Then we can hang and go to Baskin." That's at 11:56 a.m. Then she says, "Are you still sleeping?" At 12:45. She said, "You're still at Kyle's, right?" No response. She says, "Text back?" Question mark. She says, "Let's go to Baskin." "Are you ignoring me?" I got food today and passed your house and seen your car. No response. Dom, sad face at 2:36 p.m. Dom says, "Let me get up and do stuff. Then I got you." She says, "Can you just bring me today?" "How was last night though?" Dom says, "No, sorry." She says, "It's okay. I need your opinion though. Can you FaceTime me real quick?" She says, "Babe." Dom says, "On what?" She says, "Wait, what time is that?" He seems so uninterested. That was at 2:51. Then she says, "Can we hang soon? I really want to go to Baskin Robbins before it gets late." "Babe," she says, "text me back." "Dom, baby." No response. She emphasizes her message. "You keep saying you won't ignore me, then you just don't answer. You decline, but then you don't text me back. Like it's getting late. And then you just go on D&D. Dot dot dot. Dom says, "I'm sorry, I'm doing shit." She says, "Dom, that doesn't mean go on D&D and ignore me. Like it's going to be late for some ice cream soon. Come get me. Like you're still on D&D and we're supposed to get ice cream together for like 40 days." Did she say that? She did. She said for like 40 days. Um, Thank you, one step ahead. Thank you for exposing the little brat. I know, right? Thank you for the super. If you have to put the person you're dating on D&D, maybe don't be dating them? Question mark, question mark, question mark. 40 days? It sounds like an exaggeration I would make, but, we know she's lying here. She says, like, "You're still on D&D and we're supposed to get ice cream for, like, 40 days. And I thought you were doing runs because of Corona." She spelt it wrong again. Now she spelt it Carnona. Someone send this girl to spelling class. She says, like, "I know you're on your phone answering snaps. You said after you get up and do stuff, I'm just waiting by. I have the feeling you're just going to bail on me, and it's already almost too late for ice cream." Dom doesn't respond. She says, like, "It's been time to chill." "I'm for real about to freak out," she says at 5:21 p.m. "I don't want to just wait here and have you ignore me all day and then come back obviously too late." No response. She says, "Stop ignoring me. Like, it's time to hang." She removes an exclamation mark. This is gay AF. Like, "I've had a surprise for you for days." Likes her own comment again, or her own message. She said, "This shit makes me way too upset. Ignoring me is not the way to go." Wow. Dom finally responds at 5:42. "I'm gonna be home soon." She said, "How soon is soon? Like 10 minutes? Question mark. I will be ready." Then she sends 10 question marks. Dom says, "I'm about to be home soon." She says, "You already said that. How soon is soon? You literally said you're going to be home soon, Dom. How soon is soon?" With 10 question marks. Sends a screenshot. Dom says, "I just got home." He sends an emoji. She says, "Can I come over?" Dom said, "5 minutes." She says, "LMAO." Dom says, "Not right now." "And why?" She says, "Dom." Dom says, "What?" She says, "We're supposed to go get ice cream today. Like, it's getting late." Dude, it's 6:20 p.m. Like, do they have a law that cuts you off from eating ice cream? I don't know. I thought it doesn't matter when you want to get ice cream. Melly, I've had to put my husband on D&D. Well, that's different, you know? You're not an abusive psychopath. You can tell Dom's trying everything to avoid her. Dude, she's like, "It's 6:20 p.m. The world is gonna end. There's gonna be no ice cream. It's too late. 6:20 p.m. is too late to eat ice cream." Anyone who eats ice cream past that time is gonna turn into an alien. She says, like, "It's getting late. Let me come over now. I've been waiting and you told me you're gonna be home soon. Like, I thought I was coming over when you were home. Like you said I could. Quote unquote, let me do stuff and then I got you. She's quoting him. She says, "You got up and did your shit. It's time to hang." She emphasizes her message. Answer right now. WTF. Don't just say what and then not answer. You said you would be home. Then I was like, oh, bet I got ready. And now it's time for me to come hang? Question mark, question mark, question mark. When you do this, you for real stress me out way too much. I'm all hot and I'm biting my nails. Dom says, okay, you can come. She says, I'm on my way. Then they hang out. And then it's the next morning. Good morning, baby. Text me when you're up. At 11:14 a.m. Dom says, I'm up. She says, want to go explore today after you do some stuff? Dom says, I'm going to go hoop with Thomas. She says, when? Dom says, I don't know. I'm trying too soon. They're trying to by 4. Kenzie said, so we're not chilling today. Dom says, I don't know. She says, we should go exploring. Dom says, okay, after I hoop. Depends what I'm doing. She says, okay, bet. She said, is it nice out? Dom said, that's not a for sure. It's really hot today. She says, oh my God, really? Like shorts? Dom says, I'm wearing no shirt, but you'll probably be cold. She says, LMAO, probably. I'm going to hang with Gabri until you're ready. She says, also, don't ignore me today, or at least try not to ignore me. Dom says, okay, but I'm not going to be ready for sure, remember? She says, you try for me, babe. For real. For 3 seconds. LOL. I need outfit advice. Dom says, I'm hooping. She says, okay, never mind. And that was at 1:20 p.m. Then she says, what are you doing? At 3:03 p.m. Babe, when are you going to be done? She says at 3:56 p.m. She says, I'm really annoyed right now. Dom says, why is that? Because of that other shit? Kenzie says, babe, I already told you. She says, yeah, I just want to be outside. Dom says, okay, well, I don't know if you text me or call me first. Go chill at the lake. She says, LMAO, I don't want to be there alone. Dom says, true. She says, I would go. Dom says, I used to go there alone and eat my gummy bears. Kenzie says, I don't want that lady recording me. She has a camera facing the ledge. I wish I had gummy bears. Dom says, gummy worms would slap way harder. She says, what kind? Like the sour ones? Dom says, yeah. She says, those smack. She says, I'm for real bored and annoyed. Like, I want to go exploring and shit, but Gabri's not answering. Dom says, yeah, at 5:00 p.m. She says, when you're done hooping, explore with me. Please take me somewhere fun, she says. Baby? Sad face. Dom says, maybe. She says, babe, please. It's about to get cold soon, too. She says, I'm dead AF. Even after you send that random guy that pic, he's still trying to hit me up. She says, babe, can we just please hang now? Dom says, I'm doing shit. She says, Scoop, at 11:39 p.m. You told me you were done doing sales. Oh, wait, no, I got the time wrong. 7:11 p.m. She says, you told me you were done doing sales. Scoop me when you're done with sales. She says, okay, babe, question mark. Dom, he says, I'm smoking with Trevor and Dom. She says, after you smoke with them, can you scoop me? Then we can go exploring or just chill too. He says, I'm hooping with Thomas and them. She says, you were already with him though. Can I come hoop with you guys? I really want to be outside. Please, babe. Dom? He says, no, I wasn't. She says, can I come hoop after I shave my legs? Please, babe. Sad face. Dom says, no simpin' 2020. She says, not funny. You better simp for me. After I shave, can I come? He says, no, babe. She says, whatever, Dom. Then can I just come over early tomorrow? Since you had a whole entire day to hang out with your dude friends? Dom says, I don't know. She says, I think we should. Or you can just sleep over here. Remember that interview we covered earlier? Here I go. When Steve was like, he's a drug dealer. And then but okay, well, back in 2020, you were even letting him sleep over back then. So I don't know. I feel smothered and I'm not even in this relationship. Exactly. A deaf is an attachment disorder. Is that what it is? She literally doesn't let him do shit. He can't even use the restroom without her being like controlling. No one can force her own son to break up. After he tells her he's busy, she doesn't give him a sec alone. She says, or you can sleep over here or leave me on red. Dom says, it must have been on accident. Kenzie says, well, are you going to answer? Dom says, yeah. He says, you think we should what? She says, LOL. Do you want to sleep over tonight? And I think we should just hang tomorrow. It's already 10:44 p.m. She said, text when you're up the next day at 11:18 a.m. She says, we got to hang today. Babe? He says, what's up? She says, let's hang in like an hour or now. Babe? He says, I'm doing something important. She said, what are you doing? After, babe? Question mark. Please, let's hang after. She questions her own message. Dom doesn't respond. She says, LMAO, you take so long to reply. Dom says, probably. He says, I'll show you later. It's really dope. She says, oh, okay. She says, I look really cute today. You're going to like. He doesn't respond. She says, why you leave me on red? And when are you going to be done? Dom says, that was by accident. I'd be driving. She says, babe, pick me up. Let's hang now, she says at 4:01 p.m. I don't want to be here again all day, babe. He says, maybe later, babe. She sends an emoji. You said we can probably hang after you do the important thing. And obviously you're done because you're driving now. And also you told me you were done doing sales. Dom says, I drove there. He says, I'm not. Chill the F out. You make me not want to chill with you. She says, I'm chilling. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to be a bitch. Dom says, don't just start calling me out, assuming. Kenzie says, well, you said we can probably chill after you're still doing it. Can you come before 6, please? Or like now? Like we talked about chilling last night. Dom says, chill. I just got home at 4:23 p.m. She says, I'm chill, babe. Can I come over? Dom says, not right now. She says, how about in 30 minutes? I want to come over soon. At 5? Question mark. Dom says, I'll let you know. It'll be pretty soon. She says, okay, yay. I look really cute, like for real. Dom says, LOL. She says, LOL. Just don't ignore me. Are you scooping or do you want me to get a ride? Dom says, I don't know. I'll let you know. She says, hit me up in 30 minutes. That was at 4:43. 5:15, she says, now? Question mark. Dom says, I'm watching basketball with Angelo. She says, can I watch with you guys? Please? LOL. Dom says, I don't know. She says, please? You said soon. Just let me come. Babe, it's been soon for a while. Just let me come. Dom says, I said no. Kenzie says, you said I don't know. Dom said, Angelo's leaving soon. Kenzie says, and you said we can hang soon. So then can we hang? Dom says, sure. She says, when he leaves? How soon is he leaving? Dom? She questions her own message. You left me on red. Dom says, it was by accident. She says, oh, okay. Can I come at 6? Dom says, I'm about to shower. She says, I can just come. Can I just come and wait for you? Babe, I guess that means I have to wait another 30 minutes. After you get out the shower, tell me ASAP. Dom says, I never got in. She says, can I come now? It's been way more than soon. LOL. Just let me come and I'll chill while you shower. Dom says, I'm kidding. I just got out the shower. I'm gonna smoke with Bernie. Though, real quick, he's down in the dumps. Kenzie says, can I please come and smoke with you guys? Dom, I've been ready and waiting. When you say soon, that means 5 to 10 minutes, not 2 hours. Just let me come smoke with you guys. Dom said, soon for me is 2 hours. She says, please, Dom, not funny. Let me come now. You make me wait too long. Soon isn't 2 hours. I'm for real starting to get stressed. Dom, you said after Angela leaves, I can come. Now you're all done watching basketball. Now let me come. Dom says, okay, fine. You can come at 6:40 p.m. She says, okay, I'm on my way. Dom says, but turn off my light when you get here, like to my car. Kenzie says, what? She says, your car light is on? Dom says, yeah, I forgot it. I forgot it's on. She says, okay, I got you. And that was at 6:41. Then she says a little emoji. He says, hey. Oh, wait. She sends a little emoji at 7:42 p.m. And then it jumps to the next day. He says, hey, what are you doing? At 2:30 p.m. She says, just chilling outside. It's really nice out. What about you? He says, smoking a wood. She says, I hit the bong and got so fired. It was overwhelming. So right now, when she's saying, oh, I hit the bong, where do you think she was hitting the bong? Steve Shirilla's house. Yeah. Yeah. Steve was like, oh, I didn't know she smoked. I wasn't going to stop her. Well, I'm sure you can smell the bong rips all down the hallway, babe. Like, I'm sure you can smell the weed. Stage 5 clinger, says Rico. Yeah. Weed is weed. Even if you try to mask it with like Victoria's Secret perfume or body spray or like a Gucci perfume, like, bitch, that shit still stinks. Take it from someone who was a stoner in high school. You know what I mean? Like, my dad was like, what are you trying to hide? And I'm like, damn it. He's like, your hair smells like weed. And I was like, oh, guess that didn't work. Green Knight said that whole place smelled like a skunk farm. Listen. She said, Dom says, oh, wait, let's go back. She says, I hit the bong and got so fired. It was overwhelming. He says, third time you've been fired now? She says, wait, I mean fried. LMAO. I only been fired one time. What are you doing today? Soon? Question mark. Dom, text me back. She emphasizes the text. Dom says, I just been shooting around all day. She says, can I come hang? Dom says, not right now, but yeah. She says, okay, bet. She says, is it still nice out? Hang soon? Or now? Dom says, we can probably soon. She says, okay, and like 30 minutes soon? LOL. Now? Does she not know how to like look outside the window and fucking look at the weather? Like, do you know that it's raining or sunny, Kenzie? Why are you asking him? Is the weather nice outside? Like, get up off your ass and check the fucking weather. I don't know, like, just step outside. You'll be fine. I can't deal with her. She says, soon? Soon isn't more than an hour, Dom. Sad face. I thought you meant like 30 minutes or less. Babe? She removes a question mark. He says, I don't know. She says, let me come soon. Like now. You said soon, Dom. Dom, answer the phone. Just let me come now. No response. You said soon an hour ago. She questions her own message. Dom says, I don't know. I'm tired now at 8:43 p.m. Dom, you said I can come. Let me come. I'll leave at 12. I don't know what we're doing. Oh, wait. I don't care what we do. We can just chill. Dom says, I'm tired though. She says, please, we can sleep then. Just let me come, Dom. Can't you just say yes and leave me here when I thought I was coming over later? Dom says, I'm tired. She says, Dom, you said that 13 times. Let me come over. We don't have to do anything. I can just sit there and you can go to sleep. So you also just gonna let the call ring when you answered me 1 minute ago? I don't get it. Oh, so she's now trying to call him. Lord. She says, I try so hard to keep my cool when you do shit like this. You really don't know how mad I get when you tell me that we can hang later. Then you just give me the time. You just said I think she meant hang. I can hang with you to someone else. That's pretty much every day. She says, I'm so annoyed. Thanks. Dom says, no, I'm alone. He says, you can come. I'm really tired though. She says, on my way, and you can sleep. It's all good. He says, okay. She says, I'm coming. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Then it's the next day. He says, what? I'm in the kitchen. We're on April 7th now, 2020. Wait. Oh my God, we're back in 2020. This is a wrong. I just realized, are we in 2020? I thought we were in 2021. Have we been rereading 2020? I just literally realized that. Why are we back in 2020? Weren't we in April of 2021? Oh my God, we've been reading April of 2020. I was confused because I'm like, wait, something's not making sense. Or am I tripping? Yes, we were in 2021. They started sounding familiar to me, which is kind of how I realized. And then I'm like, wait, 2020? Oh, well. Hold on. Let me go to April 2021. You know how I realized? Because it says we were on page 4,000. And I was like, that's not right. I knew we were ahead of that. I didn't write it down. Oh shit, that's my bad. But I still knew we were ahead of that. I'm like, we're not just 4,000 pages in. That's not possible. And they were talking about older stuff. So I was like, wait, let me find April 2021. Yeah, see, April 2021 is like, I think it's like 16,000 pages in. Yeah, it is. Okay, so I'm on. Oh my God, we didn't realize that. And I didn't write it down. That's my bad. But also, nobody said anything. So I think we were just kind of jumping into it. Okay, well, you just heard part of 2021 or 2020. Oh no. I guess we'll get a comparison now. A year later, what is it like? Um, you know why I kind of noticed it? Because she was acting like she was asking dumb questions, and I'm like, why is she still acting really immature? Well, she's always immature, but okay, so hold on. Let me go to April. That is where we left off, right? Yeah. Oh, okay, hold on. Hold, please. Mm, I'm trying to read a little bit before so I can get yeah, that is. We were in 2021 for sure. Oh, wow. Well, you guys just heard 2020 for like a while. Um, hold on. I'm trying to find off where we left off. Yeah, it is. Because they all start off the same. She says, good morning, babe. He was still brushing her off in 2021. It totally switched up and they were like in love. I know. She's like a broken record, so that's why we didn't know. I feel like that's why. It's typical. I know. Well, I didn't realize until she said something about hanging out with her friends, and she was I'm like, "Wait, this sounds familiar." Okay, so we this is where we left off, actually. COVID time screws with us, no worries. Oh, well. I haven't read 2020 in a while anyway, so it was leap year. Uh, she was hooked on harder stuff. That's why she wants to come and begs. She ain't in love, she's addicted. Just look at your last life. I did. I did. Mal just is just kidding. Nothing happened, Mal. I wanna hear the last ones. Do you have that? Yeah, I do. Oh, from the 2022. Yes, we do. So this is where we left off. She says, I don't know. We hit in dabs. I'll see you soon." Okay, erase that part. She says, "Good morning, babe." This is 2021. He says, "Good morning, babe. Love you." Because Dom starts changing. That's how I knew something was off. She says, "Bruh, Morgan is in pulp with me." Sends an emoji. Dom says, "She's gonna be there every day now." Kenzie says, "I'm for real killing myself. Like, do I really have to go to a different part? Let me know or let you know." She says, "Pulp. I just walked in on this bitch in the bathroom." Dom says, "LOL. See, this is a different dynamic. This is a totally different dynamic." To the men in here, would you put up with her dumb bullcrap? I don't know. People do deal with people in toxic relationships. I wouldn't. This is a totally different Dom. He says, "How's school today, babe?" She says, "I did a full set of acrylics. I'm on the way home now." He says, "Did you do good?" Oh, you want to know why I was on the wrong page? Because I did that short. I went back in time. The short about the dream. You know what I'm talking about? That's why it was off too on my end. I didn't fast forward, but I'm like, we're not on page 4,000. 4,000 is like a couple of days. She says, "Look at my story." Dom says, "Should I post an ultrasound like I'm about to have a baby?" She says, "Yes. LOL." Dom says, "I need to find a good photo." He says, "I can't find a good one." Kenzie says, "Hurry." Wait, why are they sending fake ultrasound pics? What did I miss? What the hell? He says, "Should I post an ultrasound like I'm about to have a baby?" Oh. Kenzie says, "Yes, LOL." Dom says, "I need to find a good photo." He says, "I can't find a good one." Kenzie says, "Hurry." Sends a screenshot of an ultrasound. She says, "LMAO." Sends another ultrasound. Dom says, "My mom is looking." Kenzie says, "OMG, how long?" Dom says, "I just got back from getting curtains. What you want to do?" He says, "Babe." She says, "It's so weird that you texted me because I just woke up and was about to text you." She says at 7:23 p.m. He says, "LOL." I was like, "When is my babe gonna wake up?" Kenzie says, "Yeah, I definitely needed to sleep, but I still do. What are you going to do today, babe?" He says, "I'm running bags at the moment." She says, when are you gonna be done? Do you want to come get me?" He says, "Yes, I can do that." She says, "When?" He says, "I gotta sell after this one, then I can." She says, "Where?" He says, "I'm by W 130th." She says, "Okay, let me know." He says, "I'm here." She says, oh, wait, he says, "Like here." She says, "I'm home, babe." He says, "Okay, babe." She says, "What are you doing?" Now it's the next day at 5:13 p.m. She says, "What are you doing?" He says, "At the crib with Sheen." What is that ultrasound thing about? I'm curious. What did I miss? Do you guys remember? She does not say she is sorry, but has to apologize for anything and everything in many ways. That was creepy about the ultrasound. She says, where can I get a fondant cake? Dom says, I don't know. Look it up on the internet. I know we can make one. She says, how, babe? He says, I don't know how, but it shouldn't be hard. She says, we need to. He says, figure it out. He says, we CNA? What does that mean? I think he means we can. She says, I made a ton. He says, send pic. He says, here at 6:28 p.m. Oh, wait. It jumped to the next. Oh, wait. He says here at 6:28 p.m. Then it jumps to April 3rd. Oh, no. They're playing 8 ball. He sends an audio message. She says, what are you doing, babe? He says, at the dispo. She says, oh, get a cart. He says, I am. She says, do you want to come over? I'm ordering Chinese food. Do you want any? Answer fast. He says, I'm all right, babe. He says, yeah, I'll come over later. She says, okay, babe, love you. He says, let me leave the dispo. He says, love you too, babes. He said, dispo takes so long. She says, are you in there? He says, no. She says, come over in 30 minutes. Dom says, why 30 minutes? I want to go to, I have to sneeze. He says, I want to go to Walmart and get a TV stand. She says, fine, 45 minutes. She says, Easter eggs. What? When you come over, bring my fake nail. He says, okay. About to be on the way in a sec. Then it jumps to the next day. She says, good morning, babe. Happy Easter. He says, happy Easter, babe. She says, babe. I think they're kind of the family that never says the word sorry. Go to Baskin on your own dime. That's funny. She says, babe, what's your plan today at 11:01 a.m.? He says, I don't know, really. He says, right now I'm about to slide and drop some. She says, my family's going to make food soon. When is your family making Easter dinner? He says, to be honest, I don't know. Knowing us, probably like 9 to 10 p.m. She says, okay, bet. She says, my phone is cooking now. He says, what? She says, my family is cooking now. We're going to eat it too. Just be here at like 1:30. Dom says, okay, I wish I would have known because I won't be home for an hour and I got a shower. Kenzie says, just try to be here, babe. It's okay if you're a little bit late. Dom says, okay. He says, I'm about to take a shit, then shower. He says, what are you doing at 1:05? Kenzie says, just helping my mom cook and shit. Dom says, okay, I'm going to try to be over soon. I got to wash my hair. He says, I'm about to be on the way, babe. Is that okay? She says, you're late, but yes. Wait, what time was that? 2:35. Yeah. He says, babe, I'm sorry. My mom had to find my Easter basket. She said, after that convo, oh, wait. He says, babe, I'm sorry. My mom had to find my Easter basket at 2:35 p.m. Then at 6:35, she says, after that convo, I'll probably leave. Dom says, why? You just kept getting mad. Kenzie says, you never understand. I'm telling you, I'm tired. And you're saying, we can go to your house after we clean hell of shit. Dom says, no, not my house. And I said, I have to. He says, not you, babe. You can chill here. I'm just trying to chill with everyone a little longer, maybe clean. She says, I'm just going to go back to mine. Like, I just want to smoke and lay down. She says, last truck is parked shitty as fuck and give them a ticket. My mom couldn't even pull in. Okay, wait. So she goes over there, eats dinner, has a hangout, doesn't even want to stay and clean up. And then she calls Natalie Shirilla to come get her. Why does Natalie Sheila always pick her up from everything? She says, like, I just want to smoke and lay down. Last truck is parked shitty AF. Give them a ticket. My mom couldn't even pull in. Dom says, bet. That might be Tony. He's like, R word. Dom says, he was in the army and shit. Kenzie says, oh, they parked so bad. LOL. Dom says, I know. He says, maybe I should give them a ticket. Kenzie says, I'm laying down at 8:11 p.m. Dom says, I don't know what to do. She says, what do you mean? He says, I'm tired, but I need to clean stuff. It's already 8 though, so I don't know. Kenzie says, so are you not coming now? He says, no, babe, I'm going to come. He says, do you want to smoke a backwood? She says, how long? Dom says, I'm here, babe, at 10:01 p.m. That's late. Then the next day she says, what are you doing, babe? He says, just pulled into my house, deposited the money. She says, I have a driving lesson at 12. I get my license so soon. So this is around the time when she gets her license. April 2021. Why can't you have a walk home? It's not that far, dude. God forbid she has to clean up. I know. I know. We all understand that, but she doesn't, you know? When I saw that part about the ultrasound, I figured she might have made an odd story. She's like a goddess. She only gave it up a couple times. Yeah, I know. Then it's like, oh shit, he's gonna come looking for me. She says, I get my license so soon. Dom says, that's great, babe. Then she sends some TikTok links. He says, that's gas. She says, wait, what was it? I can't see what that is. He says, that's gas. She said, we should get it. Have a picnic at home. I'm about to go into my driving school. Dom says, where did you get it? She's taking a picture of the cars. She said, that website. He says, I'll check it out later. She says, okay, cool. At 1:59 p.m. Then she says, dry AF. She says, I'm home, Nug. He says, I'm on the way home. I just sneeze. She says, do you want to do something? Dom says, yeah, what you want to do? Right now I'm with Trevor. I kind of got a headache though. She says, do you want to come over and just relax? I want to watch a movie. Weird Science. He says, what movie? He says, can I chill with Trevor and Blair for a little bit? She says, yes, of course. If you guys do something fun, can I come? He says, of course. Then she sends some YouTube videos. He says, LOL, I'll watch that later. He says, is it good ramen? Kenzie says, we're making it at my house. Dom says, when? What kind? She says, when you're done chilling with them. And I don't know, we'll figure it out. Dom says, bet. Trevor left, but Blair's here. She says, okay, let me know. He says, okay, babe. She said, Nat is coming over. She says, what are you doing? He says, I'm just chilling with Blair still. Do you want me to come over? She says, I'm with Nat. What are you doing now? He says, I'm at the crib. Blair left. I'm trying to find my key. I can't find it anywhere. Kenzie says, oh my God, it's at your house somewhere. Dom says, I don't know, for real. LMAO, I usually unlock it and I will just set it down somewhere. Kenzie says, OMG, babe. He says, never mind. She said, where was it? Tom says, Blair's dumbass set the box of woods on the key. She says, OMG, Blair's so dumb. Dom says, LOL. He says, what are you doing? She says, just doing makeup. Wait, why is she doing her makeup at 10? She says, just doing makeup and shit. We want to go to Sheets. Dom says, LOL. I put alcohol in that fat rig today and it's almost spotless. She says, oh, bet. What one, babe? She says, my stomach is really effed. Like cramp effed. Dom says, I'll send a pic. He says, "Why do you wanna go to Sheetz?" She says, "Food." Dom said, "Let's just go chill at Sheetz. Have the Sheetz bussin'." She says, "LOL." "Bruh, if we threw a party at Sheetz," Dom says, let's pitch tents there. If we get enough people, what are they gonna do? Or we get, like, hundreds of people to take over Walmart." He says, "I already asked my mom about this. She said they might try and hit me with the RICO if I did it." Wait, what? Try to hit me with a RICO. Kenzie says, "I'm down. You wanna smoke?" Wait, how do we get to, like, hanging out and then a RICO? If we get enough people, what are they gonna do? He says, "Or we can get hundreds of people to take over Walmart." Kenzie says, "I'm down." She says, "You wanna smoke? Like Boone?" Dom says, "Maybe." Kenzie says, "With me and Nat?" He says, "I know." She says, "Well, what else are you doing?" They're talking about using needles. Wait, needles? What? A RICO? I know. Sounds like a personal problem. Yeah, a box of needles. Hmm. I'm confused. She says, "Well, what else are we doing?" Dom says, "To be honest, I'm just putting in that work on that bong. We could boon. What you want me to roll up?" Needles? She says, "Yeah, I'm down." She said, "I would. What you still cleaning?" "Babe?" He says, "I'll start by rolling it in a sec." She says, "How long, babe?" He says, "I just got done breaking up the bud." "My bad. I'm kind of tired." She says, "It's okay, babe. I love you." He says, "Love you too, babe." She says, "How long do you think, though, babe?" He says, "Rolling it right now. Like 5 minutes." She says, "Yay, we ready." "Babe?" she says. Dom says, "I'm on the way." He says, "Here." She says, "Where are you?" Okay, so it's 11:45 PM. So did they end up going to Sheets? She says, "Where are you?" She said, "There's a cop in here." "Babe? Babe?" He says, "What are you doing, babe?" Oh, wait, now it's the next morning. He says, "What are you doing, babe?" She says, "Driving to school." He says, "Oh," I think that's a typo. He says, "Oh, true." She says, "I'm about to be done. I did so good." He says, "When are you taking your test?" She said, "The 22nd." Dom says, "That's dope." She says, "I'm on the way home." She says, "I'm so happy." Dom says, "That's lit. You probably look so cute." She sends a picture of herself with a mask on. Dom says, "I knew it." She says, "I love you." She says, "I'm tanning my little nug," at 1:09 PM. "Babe?" He says, "You're so cute, my babe. Imma get chairs and stuff at my house so you can tan in the summer." She says, "Oh my god, that's oh my gosh, that there's so many bees, I can't even tan. I'm so excited to tan there." Dom says, "I'm sorry, I should have clarified times." She says, "It's whatever, I've just been tanning." "What do you plan on doing?" He says, "I'm spraying home defense around my house so the bees go away, then I'll come sometime after that. My steak isn't that good either. If you want me to do something else for you, I can," he says at 8:47 PM. She says, "It's okay. You don't have to." She says, "That fat Jay really grossed me out a lot." What? The fat Jay grossed me out a lot, and the sauce is different. Dom says, "It's probably because she froze it." He says, "I'm glad you're not upset." She says, "Oh, if I knew it was old, I would have just ate something else." What is she talking about? What is a fat J? I thought she meant joint. Oh, the fat from, like, a steak. The fat just really grossed me out. Okay, I'm like, "Huh?" He says, "I'm glad you're not upset." She says, "Oh, if I knew it was old, I would have just ate something else. But now I'm really anxious because she said Kenzie and probably is gonna waste the food." Dom says, "No, she was saying if she made you the big steak. And it's not old, babe. It's just cream. You can freeze it. It'll be fine. Like we freeze tomatoes for a year and pasta sauce." She says, "Well, I don't want to eat without the creams." Dom says, "You can use the cream, babe." Kenzie says, "Are you getting mad?" Dom says, "No, babe. I just don't want you to be upset." She says, "I just probably can't eat anymore." Dom says, "Because I could feel it when you got the steak." Me neither. She says, "I have really bad anxiety." Dom says, "I'm about done." "Do you still want to go to Brett's?" he says. Kenzie says, "Yes and no. I'm just really tired. I want to eat more, but I just can't." Dom says, "Is there anything I can get you? I was just going to do a little bump." What? What's a little bump? I'm glad I'm not the only one with this lingo. I'm all, no, we can learn together. Yes, rigs or needles. Oh, what? Yeah, I know a rig is a bong. Coke. Oh, oh, oh. Listen, I'm just reading the text messages, okay? I'm not here to judge who's doing what because I was reading text messages from 2020. And if you bump in that Coca Cola, you know what? That ain't my business. I want nothing to do with it. Don't involve me. I don't want the police knocking on my door. See bump. I have no reason why. Okay. Well, awkward. I guess this means that they were doing a lot more than weed and shrooms, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Probably stepped on trash. Oh. That was at 8:53 PM. Then she says the next day, it jumps all the way to 3:14 PM. She says, "What are you doing?" Dom says, "I don't know. Right now I'm with Kyle." She says, "Do you still want to do something?" She says, "I'm getting Chinese with my mom." Dom says, "I don't know what to do though." Kenzie says, "It's really nice out. We should go to an abandoned building. I know you know all of them." Dom says, "I don't like going to a lot of them." "Well, we'll go somewhere. Let me think." He says, "We can go somewhere. I got a spot." She says, "Okay, let me eat. I'm stuck in this police traffic thing because there's a huge car accident or something. I haven't looked." Dom says, "Okay." Ooh, that's also very eerie, huh? I did that post about the helicopter, but that's also very eerie. Obviously, though, those were prescribed all the time, though, so whatever. Swear if this is the case, she could have nodded the F out real quick. Mm, they both do and deal. Interesting. She says, "'Cause there's a huge accident, a car accident or something, I haven't looked." Dom says, "Okay." He says at 3:33 PM, "I don't like bringing you to abandoned buildings in the hood because it's the hood. People just get shot over there. But this one, I don't think it's a super bad area." Kenzie says, "I don't know. I feel like we'll be fine." Dom says, "Fine where?" He says, "You need a taste of the real world. You never had guns pulled on you." Oh my gosh. Now that I'm finally on the right fucking year. Listen, isn't it interesting how we were just listening to Steve Shirla? We reviewed his interview earlier and he was talking about guns. And here it is, April 7th, 2021. Dom says, "You never had guns pulled on you." The one we ain't going to, I don't think it's super hood over there, so we're good. He says, "What are you doing right now?" She says, "On the way home." Dom says, "From where?" She says, "Getting Chinese." Dom says, "Do you care if Blair comes?" She says, "No, LOL." Dom says, "LOL." He says, "We can bring." Oh, more. I'm like, "That's a typo." "We can bring more people if you want." Kenzie sends a picture of a little doggy. Dom says, "He hit me up to smoke, though." Kenzie says, "You can bring whoever you want." Dom said, "Where's Pav?" Pav? She says, "You can bring Not or she's downstairs." Dom says, "What?" She says, "Why don't you just date Pav?" Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's go back. Who the hell is Pav? I forget. He said, "Where is Pav?" Kenzie says, "You can bring Not or she's downstairs." Dom says, "What?" Kenzie says, "You know what? Why don't you just date Pav since you love her more than me?" She says, "I don't know what to wear." Dom says, "Pav got curly hair." Kenzie says, "No, she don't." Dom says, "Whatever. I don't F with any of y'all. Too white for me. I'm going to." She says, "LMAO. Watch your back, G. Let me know when I can come." He says, "You can come whenever. I'm at home." She says, "Okay, bet." She says, "I'm gonna come over in 5." That was at 4:48 PM. Then she says at 9:34, "What if you have a bonfire? It would be fun." "Babe?" He says, "Tonight?" Question mark. She said, "Yes." Dom says, "Maybe. Who's coming? I gotta get stuff to burn." Kenzie says, "Me, Nat, and Kendra would definitely come. But we could probably get more people if you wanted a big one, but I don't think you do." Dom says, "Whoever you want to come is cool, babe. I'll go look for firewood." She says, "We rolled a little blunt. We can just bring it there." She says, with the hamper wrap and with Bud I just got. Nat wants one of her friends to come. It's up to you." Dom says, "Who is it?" Kenzie said, "Pat. He's from Parma." Nat wouldn't invite some weirdo over. "When should we come?" Dom says, "I don't know really. That kid. Could y'all just have a fire at your house?" Kenzie says, "Well, I want to be with you and you have a big backyard." She says, "So what is the plan?" Dom says, "What you want me to do?" She says, "What do you mean?" Dom says, "I really don't want people I don't know here with what I do." Kenzie says, "Well, you said I can invite whoever I want, but it's okay. We don't have to do that." Dom says, "I thought it would be like your friends I already know, but all right." She said, "Okay, just let me know what's up." Dom says, "Okay." He says, "I'm trying to find a spot I can go shoot my Draco." She says, "LMAO, where?" He said, "I don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out. Can I just do it in your backyard?" Kenzie says, "Bruh, what?" Dom says, "I'm kidding." He says, "I think I found somewhere, LOL." Kenzie says, "OMG, where?" She says, "I miss you." Dom says, "Bubba's." Wait, is Draco firearm? Is that what that means? What the hell? I'm so lost. Are they doing hard drugs? Yeah, I guess. Oh, shoot the firearm. He wants to go shooting. Well, he said Bubba's. Kenzie sends an emoji. He says, "What, babe?" She says, "I miss you," at 10:26 PM. Dom says, "Maybe we can chill. I don't know if I'm going to shoot this Draco." Kenzie says, "Well, I'm with them. Next time you say you miss me, I'ma say." Dom says, "I miss you too, babe. You can say whatever you want." Kenzie says, "Okay, babe." That was at 10:34 PM. Then on the 8th, she says, "Bruh." Nat left my house at like 4 a.m. or something and left my door unlocked. Like, what the fuck? That bitch was sneaky as fuck. Dom says, that's weird. Probably just swooped by that N word. Does Kendra got a hotspot on her phone? Wait. Interesting. Kendra and Nat. He says, probably. Kenzie says, probably. Dom says, can I just update it to my other phone? Kenzie says, yeah. Bring that joint for Kendra. She wants it, LMAO. He, Kenzie says, come over. Dom says, how long are y'all going to be there? What's the plan? Because if you ain't going to be there long, I'll come over. If not, I'll shower. Kenzie says, well, we're just going to go tan in a little bit, around like 12, I think. Dom says, okay, I got time. She says, yeah, we're not doing much. When are you coming? Because we want to do maneuverability. Dom says, go do it. She says, can you just give me a time? Dom says, I didn't shower yet, and who knows what else I gotta do. Probably like an hour at least. Kenzie says, okay, that sounds good. She says, Kendra's leaving at 3, though. Dom says, I'll just do it at McDonald's. Can't fly United Airline no more. Kenzie says, why? Dom says, they aren't hiring for qualifying more diversity. Kenzie says, what happened? Dom says, they're trying to have more women and foreign people fly the planes, not just the most qualified person. Kenzie says, hold up, I'm confused. Dom says, I don't care about diversity. There ain't no white dudes in the NBA. There doesn't need to be. Kenzie says, send me the post you've seen or something. She says, I'm tanning right now. Dom sends a link. He says, I miss you. He says, what are you doing? He says, I'll bring Kendra a pre-roll before she leave. Can I buy that PS4 still? Kenzie says, I'm tanning and I don't know. She says, probably, I don't have it yet. And she has to leave at 3. Dom says, okay. Kenzie says, what are you doing at 2:30 p.m.? She says, can you drop the pre-roll off before I drop Kendra off, Nug? He says, sorry, or stop by before you take her home. Kenzie says, that's so out of the way because we're going to Co Lake. Dom says, or I can come after I'm done eating tacos. She says, we're at Coal Lake. Dom says, I just seen Chipotle too. Kenzie says, Tyler? I went, what? Oh, I think just seen Chipped Tooth, not Chipotle, my bad. He says, I just seen Chipped Tooth. She says, Tyler? He says, yeah. Kenzie says, where? Dom says, I was dropping off Kyle and he pulled in. Me and Kyle started cleaning out the garage. We def gonna get the beer pong going in there. Kenzie says, oh my God, yes, I want to have a big party there. I want to go see a movie with you soon. Dom says, yeah, we can do that. He says, let's just go to the Regal. He said, the Regal was a joke. Kenzie says, LOL. She says, oh, so did they go to the Regal? Wait, are they talking about Tyler Proctor too? Or is that a different Tyler? Remember, Tyler Proctor is the ex. Kenzie's ex. He says, let's just go to the Regal at 3:52. 6:16, he says, that Regal was a joke. She says, LOL. Dom says, LOL. Kenzie says, I was like, WTF. Dom says, I know you hate the Regal. Kenzie says, I even said to Megan, of course he says this. Dom says, you're always complaining. Kenzie says, ha ha ha. Dom says, LOL. I'm pretty, so I'm allowed to complain. Kenzie says, why are you coming for me? She says, Kyle's going to text you. Figure out what time you want us to come over. Dom says, okay. She says, I'm at Samurai trying it out. Dom says, quote unquote, it's called being high maintenance. Last one, he said. Kenzie says, because I'm cute. Dom says, you know it's true though. Kenzie says, you love me, babe. Dom says, that is also true. Kenzie says, what time do y'all want to hang out? What time should I be over? Babe? He says, like 8-ish. Before 8:30, but after 8. She says, okay, bet. Dom says, I would say. Kenzie says, text them. Dom says, okay. She says, can Nat come or no? It's okay if not. Dom says, I texted Kyle. Kenzie says, I don't really care. Dom says, I mean, I don't know. She ain't gonna like invite people to my house or something, right? Or someone she knows. Kenzie says, LMAO, just her. Dom says, because that shit was dead. Kenzie says, I'll make sure she knows that. Dom said, I don't care if people come. I just got to know them. Kenzie says, okay, bet. If she doesn't, I'll probably just bring Haley. She says, babe, is that okay? Dom says, yeah, of course. She says, okay. She says, I'm probably going to do a sleepover. I'll figure it out. Dom says, bet. She says, I miss you. I want babe and cuddles and babe. Dom says, let's sleep in the new house. Let's sleep in the new house. I'm pretty, so I'm allowed to complain. Roll your eyes. I know. They got through so many, I can't keep them all straight. Just realized I live a simple life. Can you read now? You said now. Do you know? I am ready now. Wait, per the doc, they were living together. No, they didn't live together until later. Yeah, so Dom like got his place from next door. He had to fix it up, and then she forces herself to move in. So it's not like right away. This is, I think, when she starts trying to get herself in there. He says, let's sleep in the new house. She says, I'm down. Dom says, bet. She says, love you, babe. I'm about to pick up Haley right now. I'm kind of sunburned. She says, I just ate fish eggs. Sends a voice message. Dom says, what fish eggs? He says, love you too, babe. She says, I got fish eggs on my sushi. Dom said, that's lit. She says, at my house now, we're ready to come over. She says, babe, when should we come over? Babe? Question mark, question mark. Dom says, I'll be home in a sec. She says, Kristen and them are asking me when they should come. Dom says, driving. She says, text Kyle. When can I come? Dom says, you can tell everyone just park next door and go there. I'm eating some food real quick, then I might change to pants. Kenzie says, okay, bet. It's 8:29 p.m. She says, is it unlocked? Dom says, yeah. Dom says, should we invite anyone else? Kenzie says, what gas station are you going to? Dom says, oh, wait. She says, what gas station are you going to at 10:22 p.m.? Then it jumps to the next day, 4/9 at 5:08 p.m. He says, what are you doing, babe? Kenzie says, just chilling now, drinking tea. Dom says, my stomach hurts. Kenzie says, why, babe? You need to eat something. You didn't eat all day, my little babe. Dom says, I eat peanuts and chocolate, lol, and a banana earlier, and some chips. Kenzie says, oh God, so you ate nothing healthy. Wait, so you ate nothing healthy. Dom says, only a little bit of chocolate. She says, pretty much just junk. Dom says, kinda. She says, do you want to hang soon? Dom says, maybe. He says, what are you doing at 6:43 p.m.? She says, come over. Dom says, okay, bet. She says, come down. Oh, wait. What time was that? That was on 4/9 at 8:10. She says, come down at 10:42 a.m. He says, okay. She says, are you okay, babe? He says, yeah, why? She says, you seemed off this morning. Dom says, probably from not getting shit done for 3 days. Kenzie said, true. Did you go to Crocker yet? Dom says, no. She says, okay, when are you going? He says, I don't know. He says, what are you doing? He said, sus. She says, sorry, babe, I was sleeping. Dom says, should I put soap in my hair? Kenzie said, I don't know, it's up to you. Dom says, you're the hair expert. Kenzie says, apparently not with curly hair, lol. I mean, if it's looking better without using it, then don't use it. Kenzie says, what do you want to do today, babe? Dom says, I'm gonna shower, then you want to smoke one of these new woods? Kenzie says, yeah, how long? Then do you want to go onto that one house? Nat might want to hang with me too, I think. Dom says, the abandoned one on 82? She says, yeah. Nat wants to hang and go to the beach, also. Dom says, let me shower in a sec. We'll figure that out. You know how they broke into that abandoned church? She seems to be the one to keep wanting to go to an abandoned place. Calls it her house. Excellent research, Millie. Thank you. Love always truth. She starts complaining about her house. Literally forces her in. She moved in. Yeah, she was threatening him, remember? That kept fighting and she was like, "I don't want to be at my house." See, she won't even let him set her up. Let him set up her house. No, I used to think he was kind of annoyed, hypermesis syndrome, but now hearing about perks and regs, I don't know. The church they broke into was abandoned too. Yeah, exactly. But Kenzie's the one who always wants to go to abandoned places. I don't know why. Dom says, let me shower in a sec, then we'll figure it out. He says, you want to hear about how I baked Ryan? Kenzie says, oh God, LMAO, when? And sure. You out? She says. She says, I'm on the way home with him. Dom says, yeah. She says, you can do that if you want to. Dom says, LOL, bet. She says, when are you going to be ready? Nat wants to buy some bud also. Steve Shirilla can say there and say that Dom was a drug dealer all day long, but your daughter participated in it, Steve-O. So I don't really want to hear it. She says, Nat wants to buy some bud also. Dom says, about to get dressed in a sec. Are we swimming? Kenzie says, do you want us to get dropped off? She says, or are you picking us up? We don't have to. Maybe we can. Dom says, water is still probably cold. Sorry, I was taking a drink of my water. She says, Dom says, I'ma just wear some shorts. Kenzie says, do it. Dom says, you can get dropped off or I'll pick you up. I don't care. Kenzie says, what house do you want us to get dropped off at? Dom? He says, what? She says, when can we come? He says, leave in 2 minutes. She says, what? She says, on the way. He says, I can't find my key next door. I can't find my key to the next door. And the scale is over there. Kenzie says, fuck. Dom says, one sec. He says, I got it. Kenzie says, here at 3:17 p.m. Then it jumps to later in the evening at 10:44. She says, I love you, babe. Dom says, I love you too, babe. He says, a bunny almost ran over in front of my car. I stopped though. Kenzie says, OMFG, that's effed. I already miss you though, babe. Dom says, I know, me too. He says, FaceTime in a sec? She said, sure, I'm about to fall asleep. Then it jumps to the 11th at 3:34 a.m. She says, I have bad anxiety, babe. Dom says, you okay, babe? She says, yeah, I feel better now at 9:21 a.m. Dom says, okay, babe, what should we do today? Kenzie says, I don't know, babe, whatever you want to do. She says, I still have an effing headache. I have a nail appointment at 3, so we can hang now or after or both. Dom says, okay, yeah, I gotta do that update. Maybe I'll slide out with you. Kenzie says, yay. She says, Poiv. What does that mean? Poiv effed up Mizzy. Poiv ducked Mizzy up last night. I think she meant fucked Mizzy up last night. I'm really mad at Poiv. Dom says, oh, poor Poiv. Kenzie says, WTF? No. Mimsy was bleeding. Dom says, oh no. Kenzie says, in multiple spots. Dom says, Pav was going badass. Kenzie says, like, effed up Pav this morning. She got her first whipping. Dom said, are you sure it was Pav? She says, why would Mimsy be bleeding? My mom saw it. Pav just attacked Mitzi while they were in the bed with my mom. It was effed. I was sleeping though. Dom says, oh, I thought maybe Cam. Kenzie says, no, never him. Kim has never gone in a fight. He's a baby. He's a good babe. Dom says, Poiv is a baby. Kenzie says, no, Poiv is in trouble. Dom says, not with me. I'm gonna come love the Poiv. Kenzie says, no, you better not. Dom says, I'm gonna bring her a treat. Kenzie says, babe, did you forget to tell me when you were done? Did you look in the car for towels, Dom? Dom says, when I was done with showering. And yeah, I'll look right now. He says, 2 towels and a champion hoodie. Kenzie says, bet. She says, come over at 1:04 p.m. Dom says, right now? She says, if you want to. She says, I want to hang. Dom says, I might have to run somewhere. So give me a little. She says, okay, but how long do you think? Dom says, I don't know, babe. Kenzie says, do you want to get food after I get my nails done? We can split the bill. Dom says, yes, babe. He says, of course. She says, yay. Dom says, I need to get an update on the other phone. Kenzie says, when are you coming over? Just do that while I'm getting my nails done. Dom says, I don't know, probably soon. Let me brush my teeth. He says, babe, your nails are going to take a while. She says, so are you not taking me? Dom says, probably longer than the update. Kenzie said, it's okay if not. Dom says, no, I'll take you, I guess. She says, yeah, true. Dom says, what time do we have to leave? Kenzie says, like 2:30. Did you find a place? He says, to eat? He says, Yard House sounding fire. Or what about Bar Louie? I don't know if I've been there. Kenzie says, Bar Louie is not the move. Dom says, we got Yard House at one time. That was good. I think they had really good fries. Kenzie says, the update. We can just eat at that one place. Dom says, what place? She says, it's the one we ate at last time. Or we can go to the sushi place. Dom said, which one is last time? He says, Yard House? She says, I think so. Dom says, okay, bet. He says, how long? He says, I've just been chilling. For real, I haven't done the update. He says, babe? Kenzie says, I don't know how long. I don't know how long time. Why haven't you done the update? Dom says, because I didn't feel like it. I'm probably going to go to the park, gonna go park there a little before I have to get you. Or maybe I should just walk. Kenzie says, with Bessie, said Barnes& and Noble had really good Wi-Fi. You should try going there. Dom says, Noah said only Apple Store works from his experience. Kenzie says, well, you could try. Dom says, yeah, that shit was barely working. F that. Kenzie says, yeah, that's ass. Go park in that one spot where it was working. She says, you can't go into the Apple Store without an appointment. Dom says, do you know how long? She says, I don't know how long. Dom says, I might just dip. But what have you got done? He says, I might go get food, depending on how long, because I'm really hungry. And this update not working is making me more. He says, Kenzie says, I'm done. He says, okay, where do I drive to? He said, Chico's, right? She said, yeah, she's just taking pictures. I'll be down. Dom says, okay, when we get to Yard House, I might have to use the restroom. She sends an audio message. That was at 6:30. Oh, wait. Oh, shit. Oh, yeah. So they hang out till on the 11th till 6:02 p.m. Then she sends an audio message the next day at 6:34. She said, it's fun to see the things you wouldn't do for me that I would do for you. To get a text message at 6:46 a.m. like that? No, thank you. Oh, thank you, Abuelita, for being a member for 13 months. I love and appreciate you. It's a long time. Kenzie parents didn't want her at their house. It doesn't even sound like they were intimate. I would not want my husband, and it's early. They're weird about intimacy. The girl's the devil. Yeah, they're both really weird about it. It's actually interesting to see. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. She says, it's fun to see the things you wouldn't do for me that I would do for you. Love it. You're literally sad. But you got your last 30 minutes of fucking sleep because that matters. You made me smoke. Thanks, she says. I wasn't going to today. Kenzie, don't blame your addiction to weed on Dom. We know you love just smoking those bong rips. She says, I wasn't going to today. Remember in the documentary when they're like, oh, she wasn't smoking. She was coughing up a lung. Was she? Was she really coughing up a lung? Because I call bullshit on that. But anyways, let's continue. She says, I wasn't going to today. Dom says, babe, I have to be there for the B dude to let him inside next door. Also, I gotta clean stuff over there before the B guy gets here. She says, Dom says, babe, my mom is really sick. Kenzie says, how? Is she okay? Dom says, no. She's in really bad pain where her kidney is. I'm really stressed out, says Dom. Kenzie says, holy F. I can leave school. Is she in the hospital? Dom says, no, she's about to go. She, for some reason, is freaking out. She has an overwhelming sadness, too. Kenzie says, OMG. Is this happening right now? I'm really worried, babe. Is she driving there? Dom says, no. BLT is taking her, the gay dude. Kenzie says, okay, good. She says, babe, I'm going to come over after this class. Don't stress, babe. I love you, babe. Dom says, I was about to go get breakfast with Jared, for real. I might cancel, though. Kenzie says, go. It will get your mind off of it. Sounds slap. Dom says, okay, babe. He says, yeah, we're getting hungry. Bear. She said, what's that? He says, a food place. She says, never heard of it. Dom says, probably because it's by Jared's. She says, oh, okay, Nug. Dom says, love you, babe. She says, love you too, babe. That's at 3:10 p.m. Then he says, what are you doing now? She says, on the way home. He says, from where? She says, the chickens are really far down the street. I went to Red Lobster with Kendra and Nat. Dom sends an emoji. He says, that's what's up. I'm about to run some places, probably. And it turns out my mom just has pulled muscles. She was freaking out for no reason. Well, not no reason, but it's nothing big. Kenzie says, thank God, I was effing worried. I was thinking it was a liver issue because of drinking. A liver issue because of drinking? I'm sure Dom's mother would have appreciated Pumpkin coming to see her. So what Kenzie is hitting at here, hinting at, is that Miss Russo had a drinking problem. I don't know. I don't know what she means by that. She says, I was thinking it was a liver issue because of drinking. She says, babe, are you home? Babe? He says, yeah, I just got home. What's up? She says, Kendra needs a cart, low key. Do you want to come play Mario Kart? It's really fun. Dom says, LOL, let me see if I gotta do anything else. Then I'm probably down. She sends a picture of something. She says, try to be here because Kendra has to be home at 8 o'clock. Dom says, okay, I'll probably just come in a second. Then do you want to smoke? He says, I'm going to start. What? He says, I'm going to start selling pubes. He says, babe. She says, pull up now. Kendra left. He says, oh, so don't bring cart? She says, bring it. She says, when are you coming, babe? He says, I'm about to leave in a couple minutes. She says, yay. Are you getting me from Polaris? It's now the 13th at 9:06 a.m. He says, what time do I need to come? She says, you need to be here at 10:40. So leave it like 10:20. Dom says, okay, I got you. He says, about to shower right now. She says, bet. Dom says, should I wash my hair? Like get it wet or just shower real quick? Kenzie says, I don't know, babe. I'm in school. He says, okay. He says at 10:38 a.m. Here, babe. She says, bet. She says, babe, I don't want to argue with you, but it's kind of annoying how you didn't bring the cart. calling the kettle black. I know, right? Sounds like she thinks who's Kendra is one of her friends. I know we didn't hear from her in the Netflix documentary, but that was one of her friends back then. She says, "Babe, I'm annoyed. It's kind of annoying how you didn't bring the cart." Dude, like Dom doesn't have to supply your friends with marijuana pens. And if so, then you participated in that distribution, Kenzie. She says, "I've been asking you for like 3 or 4 days." Dom says, "I got salty because my blunt was cruised." I don't know what that means. She says, "Why wouldn't you say anything? And it was a roach. You still just don't bring the cart." Dom said, "Because it was probably Kendra. I just won't smoke blunts with her." Kenzie says, "You still didn't bring the cart. The blunt was messed up before you left, so you just didn't bring the cart." Question mark, question mark. Dom says, "No, you want me to bring it? Am I getting paid for this one?" I don't know if she meant if he meant curse. The cartridges equal cart. Yeah, but he's like, "Am I gonna get paid for it?" Because he's done hooking up her friends. I would be too. She says, "Am I getting paid for this one?" Dom said that. She says, "Yeah, sure." She says, "Do you know what? We can just mailbox it since you want to be like that." Dom says, "What do you mean?" Kenzie says, "I'll leave 20 in the mailbox." Dom says, "20?" Kenzie says, "What the fuck do you want then, Dom? Honestly, I'm done. Just fuck off. What the F is wrong with you?" Dom says, "You can make 15." She says, "Why are you even being like this?" Dom says, "I just want to make sure you're making 15." Kenzie says, "She did my work, Dom. I'm not making any effing money. I'm paying her." I'm so glad this came up because remember Natalie and Steve are like, "She's a good student. She excels. She's on the honors roll," or whatever. No, no, you're not. You're paying people to do your work. She did my work, Dom. And this isn't the first time they pay people off. She was using him for rugs. They aren't cheap, that's for sure. No. Depending on the cart, you can get them for like 40 bucks, 50 bucks. Kenzie says, "She did my work, Dom." She says, "I'm not making any effing money. I'm paying her." Dom says, "Oh." Kenzie says, "Like I've told you this for effing times I asked." Dom says, "Okay, I'll bring a cart then." She says, "Yeah, I'm gonna pay for it this time since you wanna be like that." Like, what the fuck? I swear, you never do anything I ask. I have to repeat myself 8 times per hour. Then you just get mad at me. Dom says, "I'm just not gonna go out of my way for shit like that, but yeah, I'll bring the cart. You don't gotta pay." She says, "But if I don't do that, you're going to effing forget." Dom says, "How do I get mad at you?" She says, "How are you going out of your way? That makes no sense." Dom says, "When did I say I was mad at you?" Kenzie says, "No, not mad at me. You just got quiet and killed the vibe." Dom says, "I got mad because a bitch messed up my blunt. So you're mad at me." Kenzie says, "You could have effing said something and just done nothing and made the whole car ride terrible. Like you could be like, 'Hey, maybe don't hold it like that.'" Dom says, "What am I gonna say? You effed up my blunt. You can't hit him no more. You can't hit him no more." That would have been way worse. If I said anything, it would have been way worse. Kenzie says, "No, it wouldn't. It would have made Kendra understood. I just told her right now, and she said she would have gave you like $5." Dom says, "I was just letting you know why I got salty." Kenzie says, "Like it's no big deal. Kendra's not trying to F up your woods on purpose." Dom says, "Bruh, I don't give an F. I just don't like smoking with people who can't smoke. I don't smoke woods with Angelo or Bernie." for your information. I'm done smoking them with Blair. Kenzie says, okay, then be done. I still don't get why you didn't bring the cart. Like nothing happened. Dom says, I forgot. I didn't know. Like I can come right now. I thought you meant like my cart. Kenzie says, bruh. Dom says, like the one we smoke. Kenzie says, why would I mean your cart? With a bunch of exclamation marks. I was literally on FaceTime with Kendra this morning and then I asked you. Dom says, I don't know because you want to hit it. She says, they're arguing over a cart for her friend. Kenzie says, like literally this morning. Dom says, no, I meant in the car. Kenzie says, yeah, whatever. Bring the cart and also bring 2 grams for me. So he's a drug dealer, but you're the one who wants the 2 grams. Who was he a dealer to? Her. Exactly, Evie. Everything free for Kenzie. Dude, for real? Yeah. She was dealing his own stash. Yeah, she was. He says, just make 15 bucks off on it. And she's like, no. They were coming to Michigan and buying it. It's legal here. She just sucks all around. I can't find a single good quality. Let me know when you do. Kenzie knows Dom's mom issues, but not her own. Please. Kenzie, shut the F up. Someone says. Yeah. She's like, can you just bring me 2 grams of weed so I can smoke them all to the dome in one hit, please? That's what she's trying to say here. She says, yeah, whatever. Bring the cart and also bring 2 grams. I made that up, by the way. She says, and bring 2 grams for me. I'll pay 20 for the 2 grams. Dom says, this is a headache. Kenzie says, okay, then don't, Dom. Don't fucking say you're going to bring the cart, then say it's a headache. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Dom says, here. Dude, it's 11:26 a.m. They've already had this whole fight about the cart, and it's 11:26 a.m. Listen, if you're not texting me with nice words and a coffee or coming over and you're at the door with a coffee, like, you know what I mean? I don't want to be texting and fighting at 11:26 a.m. That's like way too early. She says, here. Dom says, here. She says, Haley and Nat want to hang out now. He says, hang out with them. He says, I'm not even at Jared's yet. She says, bruh. Dom says, what? She says, babe, I miss you though. They want to take pics. I look really hot though. Who thinks she looks really hot? Grams gotta mean Coca-Cola. No one says 2 grams of weed. It's either 1 gram or an eighth. Oh, okay. I was gonna wait for the members only, but you guys remember the warm milk? You remember the warm milk, right? Someone was telling me that warm milk was like people drink it when they do shrooms. I did shrooms in high school. I'll be honest. I'll be honest. Here I am being honest. But I never remember drinking warm milk. Yes. Anyways, is that what warm milk is for? Yeah, I wonder if there is other stuff going on here. Creases eyes. Can never forget the warm milk. Is that what it is? Someone said it's supposed to make your stomach less sensitive when you're doing shrooms. I don't know though. That's just an assumption. We don't know that she was doing shrooms in her house. I thought it was like weed or something, but people were saying that it's for people who do shrooms too. But anyways, there's a lot of substances here. She says, I look really hot though. Dom says, yeah, go take pics. She says, I want to hang. Dom says, we can hang after, babe. She says, answer at 5:12 p.m. Scoop. He says, I'm here at 5:57 p.m. She says, so they must have hung out. And then at 10:38, she says, I love you and I miss you. I'm really sad I miss you. Babe? He says, babe, I miss you too. Should I just come sleep over again? Kenzie says, I want you to, babe. You should have said something earlier. Dom says, I didn't think of it, babe. So should I come over? Kenzie says, let me ask my mom. Dom says, I'm in bed already anyway. So if it's a hassle, it's cool. I'll see my baby whenever I can, though. Kenzie says, babe, I just get sad sleeping without you. I'm waiting for her to text me back. Dom says, okay, babe, let me know. He says, I'm so in love with you. This is weird. I wonder if this is when she did the spell because he changes from like being sick of her shit and then he's like, I'm so in love with you. You know what I mean? Ew. Wonder if Steve did shrooms too. How did this chick graduate? Now we all really know how dumb she is. Yeah, she paid people to do. I'll say it says, I don't do that stuff. Like, she ever asked for permission to do anything. I know, right? Dom says, I'm so in love with you. She says, I love you to death, babe. I don't know. Sometimes some of these texts make me uncomfortable considering the situation. She says, I love you to death, babe. I'm so excited for summer so I can be with you every day. Oh, she says that at 10:58 p.m. Then she says, I effing hate school. Then she says, you always make me so happy, babe. Okay, too many emotions here. He was smoking her out. She says, you always make me so happy, babe. He says, I love you, Kenzie. He says, babe. Kenzie says, babe, you give me butterflies. Dom says, I'm probably not sleeping over, right? Kenzie says, my mom didn't clearly say yes or no. I don't know what's happening, so probably not. But if you want, you could drive me to Polaris tomorrow. Dom says, okay, I took my socks off. I probably won't be able to get up. She says, you're so cute, baby. She says, it's okay. If you can't get up in the morning, I'll see you sometime tomorrow. I'm just going to miss you all day, babe. Dom says, okay, babe. Then she says at 6:48 a.m., good morning, babe. Wait, what time did I say? 6:48. She says, please effing help me. I effing hate my house and my car and everything. My mom just effing spilt hot tea all over my leather in my car. This is a thing that happens all the time. Why does she never learn? Now I'm going to be late for Polaris. I'm tempted to ask if she needs to climb behind the counter and ask for help because this bitch taking 10 years. It literally took her 10 minutes to make a bowl. Dom says, make a bowl of what? That tea was a mistake, babe. He says, okay. She says, have fun at breakfast because you don't do that every single day. Dom says, I was going to say you can come over and then we can go to breakfast when you go to school, but you had to hang up on me. Anytime he wants to do something without her, she throws a fit. Yeah. He says, but you had to hang up on me. She says, okay, cool. Thanks. She says, go on your date. Dom says, why are you mad? She sends a screenshot. He says, LOL. Kenzie says, Haley wants to hang out after school. What are you doing? She says, I want to hang. Dom says, I'll do whatever you want to do. She says, are you home? At 1:46 p.m. Babe? He says, yeah. She says, do you want to hang out? He says, yeah. Blair's about to come over at like 2:30. I'm going to have him help with the house probably. Kenzie says, what are you guys going to be doing? Because I don't want to just sit and watch. Then don't go, Kenzie. The controlling part is like insane here. What is that? Like, why is someone so controlling? Is that insecurities? Dom's sister said that Pumpkin alienated Dom from his family and friends. She does. She says, what are you guys doing? I don't want to just sit and watch. Dom says, I don't know, probably move rigs and stuff from my house to next door. Shouldn't take long. She says, okay, let me eat and then I'll text you. She said, Haley wants me to come over for a little bit, so I might go smoke with her and then dip. Dom says, okay, sounds good. She says, text me what you're doing. Dom says, okay, right now I'm just taking a shit. My stomach is effed. She says, I'm so hungry. Dom says, I'm not. LOL. Kenzie says, I need food soon. Dom says, go get some food then. She says, I'm eating 2 Rice Krispie treats. Dom says, gas. Kenzie says, nah. She says, I'm going to leave sometime. I don't know. Maybe soon. Dom says, okay, I'm just at my house. She says, do you want to get food at 4:12 p.m.? Dom says, yeah. He says, my stomach is better now. What do you want to get? And that was at 4:54. Then at 5:28, she says, hi, babe. Sorry, been playing Minecraft. I want to leave Haley's. I'm bored AF. Dom says, you want to get Chinese? I'm kind of craving it. She says, you want a scoop right now at Haley's? He doesn't respond. She says, babe. Dom? Okay. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Dom says, yeah. She says, okay, come. That was at 5:35 p.m. Then he says, why do you call and hang up? Are you mad? Kenzie says, I called so you would actually answer. She says, babe, are you on the way? Bring the cart. Dom says, yeah, I'll come in one sec, babe. Do you want to get food? Should I bring money? Or do you want to stop at my house first? Kenzie says, I just had a little bit of condado. I'll only want white rice. Dom says, okay, well, let me see what my mom is making then. She says, bruh, can you just come get me? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Why is it always so hard? Dom says, yeah, on the way. She says, okay. She says, let me know when. So then he goes and gets her. She says at 11:34 p.m., of course, your dry ass can't answer. I shouldn't even have tried. You make this so much worse. Thanks. Don't even bother calling back. Dom says at 3 in the morning. I fell asleep, babe. I'm sorry, babe. She says, I might go smoke with Ty at 10:37 a.m. Can you leave some bud in my mailbox? What's up with this mailbox thing? That was like their little place, their little safe place. I mean, it's like this all day, every day. This would be suffocating for anyone. You guys, it goes on for like 4 years. What is Polaris? Polaris is like a career technical school, something like that. Oh, it's a vocational for high schoolers. Yeah, something like that. She says, can you just leave Bud in my mailbox? She says, they're going to come over. Then we can hang after I hang with them. She says, Dom? She says, you're for real annoying as fuck. How can you answer 5 minutes ago, then just ignore me? She says, bruh. Oh my gosh. Dom says, because I got in the shower. Mind you, it's only 11 o'clock a.m. He says, who's Ty? I literally texted you on Snap. Let me get in the shower now. He says, how am I annoying? She says, it's just annoying how you don't tell me that you're getting in the shower. Like, I thought you got kidnapped. She's a friend from cosmetology. Dom sends a screenshot. He says, I did tell you. Even if I didn't, it's not something to blow me up on. She says, well, babe, I was in a rush. I forgot. I'm sorry, babe. That's at 11:05. Then she says, would you be able to bring me a little bit of bud though before you go do that, please? Dom says, do you still have time to stop over and I'll give you bud? She says, Dom says, are you smoking them out? She says, yeah, only bong. She says, they only took one small ass hit, LMAO. I hit it first, LOL. Dom says, okay, so you still have weed? She says, yeah, a little. I can buy some, babe. Dom says, just make them buy it. She says, LMAO, what do I say? Dom says, like, I want to give you free weed, but I don't want your friends smoking it. Cause I've been giving you a lot, babe. They don't have to pay this time. Just know my pockets are hurting lately. Kenzie says, no, babe. Don't give me any. I won't ask for any more. I love you, babe. Dom says, I can still give you weed, babe. She says, it's okay, babe. Dom said, it just makes me sad because I feel you don't think about it. Like you spend your money on new clothes, and I spend most of my money on you. And I haven't bought myself new clothes in a long time. This is actually sad. He spends all his money on her. I can't stand that. He says, I haven't bought myself new clothes in a long time. She says, babe, I'm sorry. I always have anxiety about it. Dom says, like, I really want to go buy new clothes, but I can't. Kenzie says, I'm sorry, babe. Dom says, it's okay, babe. So, yeah, I don't know who the F tie is. Sounds like a dude, but I don't really want them smoking my weed. Kenzie said, it's a girl, LMAO. He says, thank you. Wait, she says, thank you, Quanda. Dom says, broke ass hoe. Kenzie says, why, babe? Dom says, I'm just kidding. Kenzie says, LMAO. She says, babe, let me know when you're home. Dom says, okay, babe. She says, give me a time so I can tell her when to leave. Dom says, between 1:30 and 2. She says, okay, that's cool, babes. Dom says, okay, babe. They're sending emojis to each other. She says, where are you at now? He says, leaving. He says, FaceTime. She says, I'm taking her home. Dom says, okay, FaceTime after. I'm going to be driving. Kenzie says, I'm on the way back. Dom says, I'm about to be to your house. He says, are you there? Kenzie says, where you at, babe? He says, just got to Kyle's at 7:23 p.m. Kenzie said, Kyle who? Can I get dropped off? Dom says, yeah, if you want. She says, okay, bet. We're getting ice cream right now. Dom says, okay. She says, keep me updated. Dom says, we're chilling, about to get this PS4. Kenzie says, do you still want me to come? He says, if you want to. If not, come to my house after. She says, okay, how long are you going to be there? Dom says, I don't know, probably half hour more, not that long. He says, what are you doing now? She says, we're just chilling by Staples eating ice cream. He says, I feel it. Where'd you get it from? She says, Dairy Queen, driving right now. Should I come? Babe? 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 He says, yeah, you can. She says, okay, coming. He says, okay, yeah. He says, I'm honestly trying to leave soon at 8:20. She says, okay, that works. Dom says, you pulling up? She says, I told you I'm coming now. Dom says, bet. He says, can you get me wet paper towel? Oh, wait. So he says, bet at 8:21 p.m. Then it jumps to the 16th. He says, can you get me wet paper towel? Kenzie says, hi, babe. Dom says, hi. She says, I miss you. He says, I miss you too, babe. She says, don't forget to tell me if you can get me today. Dom says, okay. He says, I'm really trying to make it about to get in the shower in a sec, so I'll let you know when I get out. She says, let me know, babe. Dom says, I should make it, just got out the shower. He says, okay, I'm ready. Should I wear red polo pants or gray pants? She says, red. She says, I'm ready at 10:25 a.m. He says, I'm on the way. He says, here, babe. She says, bet. And that's at 10:38 a.m. Then at 2:40, she says, I'm not even going to try. Effing annoying AF. Like next time, tell me you're going to be dry for a while. Dom says, babe, I was brushing my teeth. She sends a screenshot. She says, what are you doing, babe? At 5:13 p.m. He says, on the way to a sale. He says, here at 6:03 p.m. She says, okay. And that was at 6:05 p.m. Then it jumps to the next day at 3:10 p.m. She says, question mark, question mark, question mark. Okay, I can just go home. She says, it's starting. Hurry. She says, I'm scared, babe. Babe? She says, bruh. She says, where you at? Oh, wait. She says, bruh, at 8:24 p.m. Then she says, where you at? I miss you, babe. She says, babe? He said, babes. She says, I'm tired at 9:13 p.m. She says, I want to lay on you. Dom says, they are about to leave. He says, then we can lay. She says, I already miss you. Hate sleeping without you at 10:07 p.m. Dom says, I know, babe, me too. He says, I'll sleep over school days as much as I can. Kenzie says, okay, good, babe. I love you. Then it jumps to April 19th at 6:39 a.m. She says, good morning. He says, good morning, babe. Love you too. He says, do you want to come or no? She says that at 7, Dom says that at 7:25. Then she says, the fact that your lazy ass couldn't get the fuck up when you heard me panicking, like, how am I going to know that you're going to be there for me when I need it? Like, if you can't be here from you in a situation like this, when are you ever? Like, the fact that I made it halfway down Run Road and you're still laying in effing bed says it all. Literally, I'm done doing shit for you, she says at 7:31 a.m. She's a manipulative. I know. We went from like being, we need a bra emoji. That's a good idea. Babe, pick me up, smoke me, give me weed, take me home, take me to school. Do you see what I mean when I kept saying Dom was like the parent? Dom was like the parent. How old is she at this time? She's 16 at this time because it's April. She didn't turn 17 until August. So she's 16 here. She says, I'm literally done doing shit for you. Dom says, babe, I was getting up. And I do everything for you, babe. He says, do you want me to come or no? You still didn't tell me. Kenzie says, are you fucking dumb? Yeah, just go to your cells and shit. Clearly more important. Dom says, babe, I don't know what's going on, but I was literally getting up and you told me not to come. Like multiple times. Kenzie says, please just stop trying to tell us a joke at this point. Like, it's honestly a joke at this point. Like, obviously, you're not going to try. Dom says, why are you so mean? He says, okay, babe. She says, if you were trying, you would have came and got me as soon as I called you the first time. But no, you just wanted your extra second of being in bed. Thank you for making me waste more hours, she says. It's only 7:35 a.m. He says, well, I was getting up. She said, keyword was. Dom says, you told me not to come. She says, you're a fucking joke. Bye. Dude, if you're arguing with me at 7:35 a.m., you're getting blocked. Okay? If this girl kept a job at Dunkin', she wouldn't have time to be texting this much. Dude, she wasn't even going to stop even if she got a job. Hey, Shady Nasty. First time joining in live just recently. Thanks for being here. Have a better relationship with a snake then, pumpkin. Yeah, I know. She says, you're an effing joke. Bye. He says, you told me not to come, babe, more times than you told me to come. Sorry, I was just listening to directions. So I think she wanted to get picked up from school or something. She says, just something, please. He says, like, I could still come right now, but last time we were on the phone, you told me not to come. She says, just stop. You've already messed up enough. Dom says, okay, thank you, babe. She says, when you actually want to try, hit me up. But you probably won't hit me up for like a decade. Dom says, you want to see me not try? Question mark. She says, I'm watching you not try right now. Dom says, because I try harder for you than anything else. I spend most the time doing shit for you. Kenzie said, shit that's not urgent at all. You can never do anything that's urgent. You have to spend 30 minutes getting ready before you can do anything. Like, I can think of 3 or 4 different situations where you literally didn't come get me. Dom says, "Babe, here's my exact words. Okay, let me throw on some pants." Then you, "Okay, fine. Don't even come," etcetera, etcetera. Kenzie says, "Just fucking stop. I'm already about to be on Pearl Road." Dom says, "So do you want me to come?" Wait, 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 wait. Isn't Pearl Road that main road before she turned onto Progress? Or am I getting them messed up? Am I getting them messed up? So many details, I can't remember the name of the street. I thought Pearl was what she was on, and then she turned on Progress, and that's when she went 100 miles per hour into the building. Hmm. Didn't she date his homeboy first? Yeah. Uh, I think her parents are related. Oh, but I feel like Dom is at fault as well as he knew it was a snake before he picked it up. You mean Kenzie a snake? Needs an exorcist, says Crash. So insufferable, dude. Would you stick to I guess it's hard to say, right? When we're younger and in love and stuff, like, would you stick around in a relationship for this long? Yeah, probably. Like, some of us really thought we were gonna marry, like, our high school sweethearts or some shit, you know? I did. You are correct. It was. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that she was on Pearl because it really doesn't for what I was trying to prove with that is like, okay, well, here she is at Pearl Road. You know, like she was familiar, but I don't think she was dating them both at the same time and then they found out. Yeah, yeah. Tyler and Dom. She says, "I'm already about to be on Pearl Road." Dom says, "So do you want me to come?" She says, "I'm honestly really mad at you. You seriously fucked up. Look, I'm seriously wondering how many more times you're just gonna leave me and let me get effed. Like, all you effing care about is yourself. And if you effing look presentable and if you're ready, the fact that you just can't get up, run out of the house, and come pick up your girlfriend struggling." Dom says, "Okay, so I'm guessing that means come. I'll be on the way in a second." She says, "It's really shitty. And I know a lot of people that will come get me right on the spot." She says, "I'm not getting in the effing car." Dom says, Babe, I was ready to come get you on the spot. You told me not to come. Sorry, I was listening to you." She says, "My phone is about to die. I have to sneeze. Excuse me." Okay. Sorry, I have to sneeze. She says, "My phone is about to die." She says, "It's on one." He says, "Where are you?" He says, "I'm at Arby's. I'm by the Arby's." She says, "Wait, that was at 7:50 a.m." Then she says, 8:29. "I love you, baby. I'm really sorry. Please text me as soon as you can." She says, "Are you okay?" Dom says, "Yes, babe. Love you too." She says, "I'm sorry, babe." Thank you. Okay. Fighting and then "I'm sorry." Ugh. She says, "I'm sorry, babe. I feel like I'm gonna throw up." Dom says, "Then go throw up." She says, "I can't." Miss Annoyed. I think that's a typo. He says, "What?" He says, "We ain't smoking shit on 420 because I ain't doing no damn sales today." Kenzie says, "Anymore." Dom says, "Anymore what?" Kenzie says, "I can't miss anymore." She says, "Good to know I ruined 420. Dom says, "I'ma just quit smoking weed. Start taking more perks." Kenzie says, "WTF? Are you really doing this?" Dom says, "I'm kidding." She says, "Good." Dom says, "For real though, you always got me thinking about how shitty my life is." Got me thinking. Kenzie said, "It is good though." Dom says, "What?" Kenzie says, "You have a raw life. I'm jelly of it." That's weird to tell your boyfriend you're jealous of his life. Thanks for being here, Michelle. I'm sorry, babe. Here's a link for something you can buy for me. She ruined everything. She's toxic. Yeah. She says, I'm jelly of it. He says, nah, my room sucks, my family sucks, and I have no friends. Oh. Hmm. He says, my only friend is Blair and he sucks. And I have to think about PP every day. What does that mean? Dom says, like, I never even thought about it hard. Like, I don't deserve to live with all of this. I'm just going to kill myself. I think Kenzie puts him in a really negative space and then he like goes down this like emotional roller coaster, you know? She will ruin everyone she deals with. Does anyone else see like their relationship is turning? It is. That's how I knew we were on the wrong year. Don't mind me. Sorry about that. Um, yeah. Yeah. He says, I want to just kill myself. She says, what? Why are you doing this to me? Dude, it's only 8:51 a.m. She says, you said you wouldn't do it. Like I told you, you're just going to give me anxiety while I'm at Polaris and you're literally doing it. Dom says, yeah, I'm going to be chilling. He says, okay, I won't, babe. Sorry. He says, you just got me thinking. Kenzie says, babe, you have nothing to worry about. You have a good life and you're rich. Dom says, no, my life sucked till now and it still sucks. I'm not rich at all. I've been struggling with money for a bit. And you just smoke all my weed with your friends. Oh my. Oh no. Oh no. He says, like you always have. He says, disregard that. She says, no, I don't. Dom says, like, I'm honestly jealous. You get everything. When I was a kid, I would just sit in my room and cry alone. What's up with all this stuff that he's saying? Selfish. She jumps like fly on shit. All she can think about is her. It's about her. Me, me, me. I want to be high. I want to do this. Is he making reference to being gay? I don't know what that was about. Should we go back to that? Smoking my shit. Yeah. These texts makes me sad. I know. Should we go back to that one though? I don't know what he meant about the PP thing. Didn't he say he thought he was bipolar? He does say that he is bipolar. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's like, I don't want to spread rumors or anything. Like he says it in here, but I don't know if he means it like in a figure of speech, like, oh, I'm bipolar, like she makes me moody, or if he's actually like having issues. Like, I don't know about that. Um, okay, let's go back to that one. You guys said, yeah, go back. He's struggling with money for a bit because he's supporting her. Imagine being 18 and you're full blown supporting your girlfriend. Like, that's hard. Okay, he says, my only friend is Blair. He says, and I have to think about PP every day. Like, I never even thought about it that hard. Like, I don't deserve to live with all of this. I'm a just KMS. What does that mean? Like big mood swings? Maybe they both are. Maybe they both have like a behavioral thing going on, And then they smoke and do all these substances, so it doesn't help. Oh, yeah, he talks about it. Okay, Cree just reminded me. Ooh, I might have to skip through that part. Yes. Okay, so yes. Something here happened. Um, yeah, I don't know. He did mention he was, yeah, in the past. I forgot about that, Cree. She is so toxic. This is nothing, you guys. Yes. So there is a situation that Kenzie like uses against him. Okay, let's move on. I'm not gonna say anything. You guys can see for yourselves as we read these text messages. She says, "Why are you doing this to me? You said you wouldn't. Like I told you you're gonna give me anxiety at Polaris." Okay, he says, "Okay, I won't. Sorry, babe. You got me thinking." She says, "Babe, you have nothing to worry about. You live a good life and you're rich." He says, you just smoke all my weed with your friends." He says, "Disregard that." She says, "No, I don't." Dom says, like, "I'm honestly jealous you get everything. When I was a kid, I would just sit in my room and cry alone." Kenzie says, "I literally tell you I won't do that anymore." Dom says, "Because my mom was too busy working." Kenzie says, "And you say it's fine." Dom says, "To support us." Kenzie says, "Babe, why are you doing this to me? Like, I am at school. Like, do you want me to just go cry in the bathroom?" Dom says, "'Cause like I deal with everything with you and it just makes me feel so shitty." I think being in this toxic relationship like brings Dom's trauma and anyone else who she deals with brings that out, you know, like she's like triggering. She's so unhealthy for him. "Why are you doing this to me?" Exactly, Mal. She's He says, "I deal with everything with you and it just makes me feel so shitty." He says, like, "Every problem you got, everything, I'm there for you, and it's just stressful. I never had no one there for me." She says, "I'm sorry, babe. I don't trust anyone but you. I'll just keep everything to myself. I'm already crying now. Please leave me alone so I can go back in my classroom." Dom says, like, "My dad beat up my mom and left when I was 3. That's pretty much what I remember." Kenzie says, "I know, babe. I'm sorry, and I obviously feel bad for you. Like I'm begging you to stop and you just keep going. You told me you wouldn't give me any anxiety at Polaris, and all you've been doing this whole time is giving me anxiety." Dom says, "I'm sorry. It's just I have problems too." Kenzie says, "I don't even know why you're trying to have that conversation with me over a text. I'm aware everyone does. Like I know I should have just came home with you. I should have known this would happen." Dom says, like, "I see you freak out over tea, so it just makes me think like about me." Dom says, Kenzie says, "Dom, I freaked out over tea because it got spilled all over my uniform that I need to wear so I get points. And obviously flipped out more because if I'm late, I'm losing my effing hours. Please stop acting like my problems are so little. I'm done texting." He says, "Okay, babe, goodbye." Kenzie says, like, "You can text me, but please just be nice. Like, you don't need to talk to me about all that shit right now." Dom says, "You're never nice to me lately, babe." Kenzie says, "Babe, I've been depressed as fuck for weeks and my house fucking sucks. Anytime I go anywhere near my mom, she starts an argument with me." They both have a lot to say about parents, huh? And I'm not here to blame anyone and or talk shit, but there's something going on here. And it's not healthy for either one of them. Give her anxiety, he's communicating. Dude, she's horrible. Yeah. What is wrong with her? I don't know. I don't know what is wrong with her. Jesus, it's all about her. He is hurting for real. I know. He's telling her, like, like, "You're making me feel like shit. I feel like shit about this." And she's like, "It's about me. My mom starts an argument with me. What about how I feel?" Like, she never understands what he's going through. She says, "Anytime I go near my mom, she starts an argument with me." Natalie Shirilla. We would like to ask you, is this true? Did you start arguments with Kenzie and trigger her? And she fucking hated your house? I'm just quoting what she said. Let me show you what she said so you guys don't know. It's me. She says, I've been depressed as fuck for weeks and my house fucking sucks. April 19th, 2021 at 9:02 a.m. Anytime I go near my mom, she starts an argument with me. How the do you expect me to feel? Dom says, okay, well, you're saying, how do you expect to feel with your mom? How do you expect me to feel with you? You're just passing the torch of stress. Kenzie says, what are you trying to get at with this conversation? How many times do I have to tell you I'm struggling? Selfish and self-centered. He's hurting and she's trying to communicate how he's feeling and she tells him to shut up. Yeah. I hate how she always turns it around on her. She does. She says, how many times do I have to tell you I'm struggling? Dom says, okay, babe. She says, I'm simply just going to stop telling you when I feel sad because apparently it's not good enough for you. I'll just pretend I'm happy all the time. I'll just put on a mask. Dom says, I'm going to start telling you every time I feel sad instead of being strong for you and helping you with everything. Every time I think about some effed up shit, I'm going to tell you in intense detail instead of just keeping it to myself. Kenzie says, good. I've been asking for you to talk to me. You never tell me how you feel, so maybe that will help. Dom says, okay. She says, are you trying to make me cry? Like, what are you trying to do? What is your point of this conversation? I've asked you like 8 times, do not give me anxiety, and clearly you're not understanding. Dom says, you also told me not to come get you. But okay, I'm done. I just feel like total shit right now. I won't text you about anything. Kenzie says, just keep texting me. I've been on my phone this whole class already, anyways. I could have just stayed with you. You could have told me to stay. Dom says, you got to get your minutes. She says, I literally gave you the option. If you knew you were going to text me like this whole time, I would have effing stayed home. Dom says, I didn't know I was going to text you either, babe. She says, well, babe, you promised you wouldn't give me anxiety. And I'm already in my 3rd panic attack. Like, I've already cried twice here. And I'm starving because I didn't get any pulp. And you could have just texted me nicely and not in the way that made me panic. Dom says, I asked you to say things nice to me all the time, but you don't. You're mean. Kenzie says, bruh. Dom says, like, not even when a situation happens. You're just mean to me on the regular. Kenzie says, how do you expect to feel good when you're surrounded with toxic people? Who's toxic, Kenzie? Who's toxic? Who are you around? The people at Polaris who are learning to do highlights because she's in cosmetology? Or do you mean your parents are toxic? I would appreciate a clarification here because I think it fucking matters when you talk about Steve and Natalie Shirilla. Really. Yeah. Oh, her mom is so awful here in these texts, but her best friend in prison. No accountability here. Listen, with this case, I always put in some of my video titles. Accountability has left. Like I don't even think they know that it's a word in the dictionary. I don't even know that they know it's like an actual word, like what it means or anything. She says, how do you expect to feel when you're surrounded with toxic people? I don't know how many times I need to tell you this. And I'm really not me. And I'm really not mean. And you only when you do dumb shit. Like, I swear you said 3 or 4 times this conversation, I said the same thing every time. Are we just gonna keep saying the same thing? He doesn't respond. She says, I just wanna effing leave. Why did you have to do this? Dom says, N-word. I'm R. Don't you know how to F with ugh, I don't like that word. We don't say that here. RETARDS. You guys can read the sentence for yourself. She says, "What? What are you even talking about? Do I need to be worried about you?" Dom says, "Nah, be cool." She says, "Why am I not believing that?" Dom says, "I don't know." She says, "Like, you're seriously worrying me." Dom says, "Do I need to pick you up? Because I got a shower." She says, "You will have time to shower. Just shower now." Dom says, "Also, we can get pulp and I can make you eggs before you go to school." So he's upset. He's upset. They fight. She makes it about her. Now he's making her boot eggs and what else did he say? Pulp. He's gonna get her like it's like Jamba Juice. I couldn't handle this mouth every day in my life. He says, "If you even are going, if you aren't, I'll still do that to you." Wow. He's like, "I'll make you breakfast and I'm driving you to school." She says, "I don't want to go to school. I just want to stay with you." "Well, I might have to go, but I don't know." Dom says, "Okay, well, let me know if you want pulp or eggs. I'm going to eat a snack real quick and get in the shower. I'm starving." He says, "And go to school if you can." She says, "Okay, babe, I love you." Then she says, "I'm sorry." Dom says, "It's okay, babe. Love you too." She says, "Babe, I might have to take a fat test today, so I might skip." Dom says, "Okay, babe." She says, "If anything, I'll just start walking." He says, "I just won't shower." She says, "No, babe." Dom says, "Or eat." She says, "Shower, LOL, I don't care. If anything, I can just get a ride from Rachel and get dropped off at your house." Dom says, "You making breakfast from now on?" He says, "I'm the N word. I ain't cooking. I'll make money." I'm not gonna say that word. She says, "I don't think you're talking to me like that, right? Just a little bit rude, I think." Dom says, "My bad. I don't even know what's going on." She says, "Obviously, I don't have a problem cooking, but if you're going to tell me I need to start cooking like that, hell no. Like, obviously, I'll be a housewife for you, but you better respect me and not talk to me like that." A housewife? She's like 16 here. What does she mean, housewife? The housewife? Bitch, you can't even get it together. You're a kid. Respectfully, actually. You're a kid. She says, "I'll be your housewife for you, but you better respect me and not talk to me like that." Dom says, "Yeah, do that. I'd be doing everything." She says, "Are you mad again?" "Like, why?" Dom sends a screenshot. She says, question mark, exclamation. She says, "Are you okay?" Then she says, "Miss Hazan just came up to me and asked if I was okay. Then after I told her what was wrong, she proceeded to tell me to put my phone away. Like, what the fuck? I'm really about to drop this class. Are you going to be here in time, babe?" She's about to drop the class because the teacher told her to put her phone away. Do you know how many teachers told me to put my phone away? Kenzie has 0 skills for the career force. She's a secret side piece material at best, not even. She says, "Are you gonna be here on time, babe?" Dom says, "Yeah, babe." He says, "I didn't even shower." He says, "Yeah, I just wouldn't tell Miss Hazan shit." Kenzie says, "I'm not anymore." She's effed. Dom says, "Yeah, for real." She says, "I'm ready to see my babe. I miss you." Dom says, "I miss you too." He says, "I was humble for like a week, but that shit was way too much pressure. I'm being back to being angry now." She says, "What?" He says, "What?" He says, "I could be on the way at like 10:30 if you can't." She says, "I could get a ride from my friend." Dom says, "Okay, bet." She says, "Okay, babe, I'll see you soon." He says, "Okay." She says, "Be there in a sec." He says, "Okay." Then she says, come at 12:40. Dom says, okay, about a shower. She says, invest in green energy. 12:50. Okay. That was at 12:18 PM. Then she says, don't even effing come already at your house. Should I just go home? Dom says, why? She says, what do you mean, why? You kind of just locked yourself in the bathroom as soon as we got here. Dom says, I'm in my room, babe. She says, even worse. You didn't even tell me. I've been sitting on the couch out here. Dom said, I didn't know that was a thing. Kenzie says, I didn't know it was a thing to pick up your girlfriend, then just go chill in the other room. Like, do you want to not talk about anything that happened? Like, you're not interested at all in what happened? Dom says, what happened then? I'm trying to get dressed, babe. He says, just waiting for my hair to dry more. She says, what happened at school? Dom says, I figured that's what you were talking about. She says, hold up. I feel like puking. She says, I'ma leave, babe. I don't want to make you any more mad. Dom says, okay. She says, babe, if I leave, will you be mad? I don't want to make you mad. Dom says, do whatever you want. I'm not going to get anything done today anyways. He says, already missed 3 sales. Kenzie says, I'm sorry, babe. You could have done them. I'm just going to leave you so you can cool down. I feel like I'm just going to make you more mad. He says, whatever. He says, I feel like I just backtracked 6 months. She says, I'm telling you, I can stay here if you want. Dom says, I'm back to being angry Dom all the time. See what I mean? Like she does not help his mental health issues, and she smothers him and verbally abuses him. And I just think that he's like done with it, you know? Yeah, go home, says Crash. Okay, be fair. She has learned to sew flags and make clay beads in Marysville. I'll rip those clay beads, break them. Angry, just kidding. Now I'm getting angry. Needy, greedy, angry all the time is some kind of mental health. He says, I'm back to being angry Dom all of the time. I don't think he's like that though. I think he's like that because he feels smothered. He's spending all his money on her. He can't even pay his bills because he's out here supporting Kenzie like he's Steve Shirilla. Steve Shirilla, you should have been paying for all this shit and picking up your child and making sure she was happy and making sure she was healthy and dropping her off at school, paying for her shit. Like, I don't know why they thought at 17 that Dom could just support her like they were married and adults, you know? I think it's a lot for him mentally. He says, I'm back to being angry Dom all the time. She says, obviously I want to stay here. Dom says, I don't care, done trying. Kenzie says, that's a bad idea. Dom says, more I try, more I get pushed. Now no, it's not my tolerance level back to 0. Kenzie says, what do you want me to do? Dom says, because if not, then everyone's just going to keep pushing it. Kenzie says, please tell me what you want me to do right now. Like, please just tell me now so I can stop sitting here starving myself. Like, I've just been waiting to hang with you. Please tell me. Dom says, write a 4-page essay on why yelling at someone about little things will never help at all. Ever. Kenzie says, I understand that, Dom. Do you want me to leave? Tell me now. Dom says, I don't think you understand it, babe. All I want you to do is write the essay. Kenzie says, my phone is at 3%. Kenzie says, that's all you got to do. I don't care. She says, okay, I think I'm going to go home. I'm done getting yelled at this whole time. Dom says, you yell at me all the time. Kenzie says, I've been trying to calm you down this whole time. What the fuck are you trying to get at? She says. Dom says, like at this point, Kenzie says, like at this point, you're just dragging it on and making it annoying. Like it was over 4 hours ago. Dom says, nice. Next time you tweak at me over nothing, I'm going to just call you annoying. Kenzie said, oh my God, I'm not calling you annoying. Okay, babe, I'm gonna go home. Text me when you want to see me. I am also walking home because I don't want to see my mom. Dom says, I can drive you if you want. It's a 5-minute walk anyway. She says, are you sure? She says, yeah, but I have 2 bags. Dom says, you tell me. She said, could you just drive me? My stomach really hurts. Dom says, mm hmm. She says, okay, I'm in your car. Dom says, okay. That was 2:28. She says, Haley's pissing me off. Dom says, I'm not going to argue about it anymore. Kenzie says, really bad. Dom says, all I'm going to say, I feel like it's unfair. And if I did a lot of the things you did, you would be mad. Kenzie said, my phone's at 1%, babe. Yeah, I know. And I'm trying to fix that. I told you, I'm going through hella shit. Kenzie says, like, I had 3 effing finals to take. I literally felt like shit every single day of my life, and I haven't had an appetite. I'm really trying hard, babe. Dom says, your babe has went through shit his whole life. Don't make me go through more. Kenzie says, I'm not trying to, babe. I'm sorry. Dom says, like, I do all my shit and deal with everything you need. Kenzie says, babe, I'm trying to make friends so you're not the only person I can talk to. Dom says, I'm your boyfriend, not both your parents combined. Oh my God. These texts hit differently. After all the crap, the documentary, the interviews. Yeah, oof is right. Oh, I'm your boyfriend, not both your parents combined. He knew it. He wanted out. At this point, he wants out. If bipolar is an issue, he could be suffering, experiencing the lows. I need to screenshot that. Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm not both your parents combined. We should show that to Steve Shirla after his little clown interview he did today. I don't know what that was. We all have like trauma from that interview. Um, anyways, let's go back to the text. Wow. That is heartbreaking. Mackenzie is a miserable person who would want to be around her. She's a energy draining vampire. It's funny too because well, it's not funny. But you mean like I mean like funny ironic. She talks in the jail phone call. I'm going to be dropping a ton of them. I know you guys have probably already heard them, but just listen to them again on my channel. When she's on the phone with Natalie Shirla and she talks about people being like energy vampires, remember? She said that. And it's interesting because I feel like Kenzie's the only one who's like that. He says, I'm your boyfriend, not both your parents combined. She says, I love you, babe. Please text me soon. Dom says, I'm about to have to cancel everything because I can't chill out. Kenzie says, cancel what? Dom says, honestly, fuck this morning. F today, F my money and my mental health. F 420. I don't care anymore. You don't care about my mental. Kenzie says, yes, I do. Don't even lie. You know I do. Dom says, I feel like I was getting better, but not. F it. Mm. Mm. I feel like we're getting so much from these right now. I haven't watched the Steve interview. Watch it with my commentary earlier. I think I did pretty good. I tried to remain nice, but Christine has even said it's like Dom did her parents' job. She would be floored to know her brother said the same. Yeah. My son is like a twin Dom in every situation. It breaks my heart. And the girlfriend wants and expects it all like Mackenzie. Ugh. He says, but not F it. Kenzie says, thank you for letting me know that it's my fault. Dom says, did I say that? She says, that's what it feels like. He says, well, yeah, back to just being angry all the time, I guess. Kenzie said, what happened this morning was because of me. Dom says, couldn't stay controlled that long. Got pushed a little too far. Kenzie said, so if this morning made you go back to mad, then that's my fault. Dom says, actually pretty far. He says, It's just, I'm done tolerating anything. Kenzie says, I don't think that's a good idea. Like, please just tell me if this is my fault. Like, seriously, that's what it feels like. Dom says, probably. I mean, to be honest, I focus on your life 2 times more than mine. Kenzie says, do that with you, though. I do that with you, though. Dom says, I don't expect you to be perfect. Kenzie says, I focus on your life so much, half the time, the only thing I can think to talk about is shit that's related to you. Dom says, you want me almost perfect. Kenzie says, obviously, I don't mind it. I don't want you almost perfect, babe. Dom says, dot, dot, dot. I don't know. It feels like every little thing I do, you're pretty rude lately. Even when I don't do anything, you're rude to me about something. She says, babe, I never try to be rude to you. I get frustrated sometimes. Like I said sorry 35 times. I really don't want to keep thinking about this morning. Dom says, sorry isn't going to help me right now. Get me a perk and I'll be happy. Kenzie says, it really traumatized me. My mom has never thrown hot tea on me before. LOL, I don't know about that. I'm not used to that shit. Kenzie, your mom didn't throw hot tea on you. She spilt it in your car. Like, what do you mean she threw hot tea on you? Unless she did. That's not what I got from it, though. Hmm. When does she shower? Never, because she doesn't have time. She's always harassing him. He treats her horribly, but she wasn't trying to respect herself by Steven Allen. She thinks she doesn't deserve respect either. He is very hesitant to meet her pretend friends. Pumpkin is a drama queen. Yeah, I know. She says, it really traumatized me. My mom has never thrown hot tea on me before. She says, LOL, I don't know about that. I'm not used to that shit. Dom says, shit happens in life, you move on. Kenzie says, babe, I have been trying. You keep talking about this morning argument, though. Obviously, I can't stop thinking about it because that's all we've been talking about all day. If shit happens, then let's move on. Dom says at 3:53 p.m., I'm still mad. Smoked a joint and still heated. Kenzie says, are you serious? I haven't even smoked yet. I keep feeling like I'm on the brim of throwing up. Dom says, I keep getting really mad. She says, I'm sorry, babe. Dom says, my whip is on E too. Kenzie says, what? He said, shit is R word. Can't get a break. Kenzie says, you don't need to keep being mean to me. Dom says, broke out back door too. He says, I'm not. She says, what do you mean? Dom says, I'm just telling you how mad I am still. She questions his message. She says, and you know that upsets me. It upsets me when you're mad. Dom says, the back door is broken. Kenzie says, I don't like to see you upset. And what one? Your mom's or your house? Babe? He says, what's up? She says, what are you doing? He says, driving. She says, when are you going to be free? He says, I don't know. She says, oh, okay. He says, what are you doing? She says, just making funny videos. Do you want to hang? He says, maybe. I'm chilling with Angela and Bernie right now. She says, oh, that's probably fun. You could do that if you want, babe. I don't care. Just text me and check up on me, babe. You can sleep over tonight if you want. Dom says, okay, babe. She says, I'm going to go hang out with Nat. Dom says, okay, babe. Then she sends attachment to something. She says, look at the clothes on the link. Literally, you could do that so easily. Like, we could just make a clothing brand called it like New York, Florida, somewhere popular, then just have shit like that. Dom says, those clothes are so simple. Do people actually buy that? Kenzie says, look at how effing expensive they are. $78 for an effing pair of sweatpants? That's just plain. Like, how the F? Dom says, yeah, that's R word. RETARDED. Kenzie says, you could do that so easy. Dom says, I wonder if people actually wear that. Kenzie says, dude, people definitely do. Dom says, I'd rather just make clothes I'd wear. Kenzie says, the only thing stopping me from buying that shit is the price. Dom says, and people would probably wear then, you know? Kenzie said, yeah, it's funny AF. Dom says, for real, for real. Kenzie says, I want to make clothes with you. Dom said, well, let's do it, babe. He says, love you, babe. Sorry about today at 9:17 p.m. She says, it's okay, babe. I love you so much. What are you doing right now? He says, I'm just at home. My mom gave me a shitty ass burger. LOL. It was like raw and the cheese was effed. Kenzie says, bruh, I feel bad. Dom says, we threw it back on. Kenzie says, I feel like that happens hello though. LOL. Hopefully it's better. A burger sounds good. Dom says, she redid it, but I still don't think I'm gonna bite it. Kenzie says, oh no. She says, babe, send a pic. She says, I'm painting. Dom says, I don't want to in front of everyone. Kenzie says, LOL. True. Dom says, what are you doing now? She says, picking a 420 outfit. She said, check Snap. She says, I literally asked my mom to cut Gunther's nails because they're literally crooked and he can barely walk. And she was like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll be lazy and fucking annoying. I asked her like weeks ago, like if I knew how I would. Dom says, babe, you can do it. I seen my mom do it. Ask for the clippers. Kenzie says, if you cut too far, you could cut and make them bleed, or they will squeal really loud, and that will cause a straight panic attack. You need to know exactly where to cut. Dom says, no, just cut a little shorter. Look it up on YouTube. Everything is on YouTube. Kenzie says, what are you doing right now? Dom says, chilling on my couch, about a slump. She says, I'm with Nat, bored. I miss you. He says, damn, this late? She says, yes, I lost track of time. We are painting. Dom says, that's what's up. He says, get some sleep. He says, you're going to Polaris, right? She says, I don't even have that test tomorrow. I don't even have school tomorrow, babe, only Polaris. I'm very happy about it. He says, really, how? He says, babe, can you do me a favor tomorrow? Kenzie said, because apparently the sophomore's test is tomorrow. Dom says, can you get backwoods? Kenzie said, yeah, what's that? Yeah, how many and what kind? What store? Dom says, Russian cream, sweet aromatic. Those are my top. Or dark stout. Probably Speedway. I hope they have them. Because I only have a pack. And honestly, babe, we can't be too stingy on 420 because then we'll just be smoking me and you. We'll see what's up, but maybe we should just share the love, you know? Kenzie says, wait, what? And yeah, I could get that. Dom says, bet. He said, like I wasn't going to invite Blair over and then we weren't going to chill with Kristen. Kenzie says, I thought we were going to have a lot of people over. Well, like the homies. Dom says, like who? Kenzie said, I don't know. I was just thinking about people that would come. I don't know. I don't care. It's up to you. Dom says, I have no plans right now besides go to Jared's in the morning, then go to Kyle's at 4. Kenzie says, Haley, not Megan, and Maddie asked me to smoke. You know that though. Dom says, what? She says, they also asked me to hang tomorrow. Dom says, okay, so here's the thing. When would everyone hang? Kenzie says, but Haley was going to match. Dom says, probably. Like after 5, right? Kenzie says, I don't even know yet. I'll text them right now. She says, babe. He ended up falling asleep because now it's 4:20. She says, good morning. He says, good morning. Love you. I'm asleep a little longer. She says, I am so effing pissed. I don't know why my mom just have to keep talking about the same fucking situation. And you can get me from Polaris because that weird bitch doesn't want to drive me home. Dom says, yeah, if I'm still there. She says, what do you mean? Well, my mom said she isn't going to get me, so I can Uber if you can't. Or go with Rachel. Dom says, I gotta go to Jared's and get him some stuff. Kenzie says, oh. Dom says, I don't want to be there long. Kenzie says, okay, babe. He says, want to get it out of the way? She says, that sounds good. Just keep me updated. He says, okay. He says, babe. She says, are you getting me or is my mom? Dom says, Ken, your mom? I was about to be on the way to his house. Kenzie says, yes. Dom says, okay, bet. 10:31 a.m. She says, you home? Dom says, just got to Jared's like 20 minutes ago. Kenzie says, okay, bet. Dom says, I'll be back 12-ish, hopefully. She says, that works. She says, my mom was going to let me go practice maneuverability, but of course, you have to effing take my car. Like, why can't she get her own car? Um, Kenzie, that's your parents' car that they pay for. The worst thing you can say is, "I don't know how this or that." Just search just 2026, right? She's not pumpkin, she's butthead. Kenzie keeps Dom too busy to have space to think about his life. Does anyone else notice she doesn't know the actual real appropriate times to apologize? She said sorry, but not in a place that's usually appropriate, comma, emotionally. Good point. I would rather sleep with the rattlesnake. Didn't they pay for her car? Yeah, it is. Thanks, Crash. Thanks for being here. They did pay for her car. She says, like, why can't she get her own car? It's not even my car anymore. Dom says, just ask her nicely not to take it. Kenzie says, babe, there's no choice. She has to take my car. And she's going all the way to Cleveland. I'm so mad. Dom says, you want to do it in my car? She says, LOL, I'm down, babe. She says, where? She says, Haley, Maddie, Natalie, and Megan want to come over to my house at 1, probably closer to 2. Dom says, I don't know, wherever they can. She says, what? Dom says, we can do the maneuver thing wherever. Do you have cones? She says, oh, yay. No, I could probably get some though. Dom says, I think I have some somewhere. Can we do it tomorrow? Kenzie says, we could literally do it at the high school. We can do it whenever. Mom is going to be back till 1:30. Mom isn't going to be back until 1:30. What the F? She says, I'm so pissed off. Dom says, I want to go to Noble's because they have a big sale. Kenzie says, I have no papers. Dom says, what do you mean, like joint papers? Kenzie says, anything to roll with. He says, oh, sorry, my phone was going off. He says, Kenzie says, think I have hemp wraps. Dom says, oh, okay, I'll get some at Noble's. Nobles. I don't know if I'm saying that store right. She says, okay, babes. She says, when are you going there? Dom says, I'm about to smoke again real quick, then going home. She says, I haven't even smoked today. When are we going to do everything? I'm about to hit the bong now, actually. Dom says, you about to get fried. He says, I don't know. So right now I'm at Jared's trying to leave soon without looking like I just came here to give him stuff. Then I think I got to slide to my other homie. And I know Kyle's going to come over. He'll want to go to Noble's. Then we'll probably go to Kyle's at 4:20. Then after is probably the time for real blazing, unless we have time before. Kenzie says, so tell me the times. I'm going to hang out with the girls for a little bit too. Dom says, okay, I'll let you know what's going on when I get home. She says, okay, I'm picking up the girls around 2. She says, when? Dom says, when what? He says, you can come over whenever. Dom says, Blair and Kyle and Kristen here already. She says, bruh. Dom says, what? She says, why didn't you tell me? Dom says, I told you on Snapchat, babe. Kenzie says, can they come? Dom says, I said, come over whenever. Blair, Kyle, and Kristen coming. He says, who? Kenzie says, Nat, Megan, Maddie, Haley. Dom says, Christy's going to be salty, LMAO. Should we just let him come? He says, F Kristen. Kenzie says, for real, it's up to you. She says, I want to come right now, but they just got here. She says, babe. Dom says, I don't know. We should all just wait till after Kyle's because it's already 3 here. He want to smoke at 4. Kenzie says, what do you mean? I want to come over and smoke. It's like Dom is hanging out with Kristen and his friend, and she can't handle it. She's like, no, I need to be there. Like, he can't be around. I can't share him with anyone. That's like the vibe that I get from her, like wanting to go over there. She says, I want to come over and smoke. Dom says, and then you can have anyone over. She says, you're making no sense. So do you want me to come over now? Dom says, you really going to, Kenzie says, you're really going to smoke blunts without me? You already did. Dom says, I only smoked one with Jared. I'm smoking with Kyle. He says, a bong. Wait. He says, I'm smoking with Kyle. I think he said a bong. And let's have people over, like after 5. Dom says, and I'll roll a 20-gram joint. Kenzie says, no one's even gonna come. Dom says, oh, well, I don't know. Should I just tell Kyle McCarthy to F off? Kenzie says, if any of my friends come, Kyle and Kristen won't. She says, why? Dom says, because it's in the way. Why would no one come? Kenzie says, who would come? And I don't know. She says, like, I obviously wanted to come smoke with all you guys, but I guess that's already happening. Dom says, okay, babe, this is why this is frustrating. I told Kyle I'd smoke with him at 4, and it's 3:15 right now. So if y'all come over and your friends would leave in half an hour, Kenzie says, are they coming back over later? Everyone? Dom says, who? Kristen and Kyle? She says, and when should I be over? She says, yes. Dom says, I would rather have them not if it's going to make it a problem with you, because I don't even like Kristen. Kenzie says, what time? After Kyle's. Could they come to Kyle's maybe? Because they would just go home and just get picked up again. Dom says, we're just going to smoke like a 3 joint and talk for a sec. He says, not trying to have Kyle be extra weird. How about I go and we just chill after? Because I haven't really even blazed today. Kenzie says, okay, but I miss you. And I don't want to miss anything fun. Dom says, we do everything fun tonight, maybe? She says, yeah, maybe. Can you be back at 5:30 or before that? I kind of want to go to Kyle's. Dom says, LOL. Kyle's going to come with me. He says, now. So I don't even know. Kenzie says, what? Dom says, I should just unalive Kristen. Kenzie says, is Kristen going now? She laughs at his message. Dom says, probably so. I should just unalive Kristen. Kenzie said, like, Nat is definitely not trying to F Kyle. Dom says, or you guys can just come after so they leave. Because they def will. Kenzie says, I know I low-key want to chill with Kristen, though. Dom says, I don't know. She just gives off bitch vibe. Kenzie says, so what do you want me to do? What is happening? Dom says, I don't know. What do you think we should do? Kenzie says, obviously, I want to bring my friends with me. Haley bought Bud from you. She can match. And I don't want to just drop them off and then pick them up again. They might not be able to come back over if I drop them off. Dom says, well, you want to just chill with them and smoke like after 5? Kenzie says, well, I don't want to miss anything fun. Dude, I can't with her. Just let him hang out with his friends. That was random. I know. In the crash, she said we would probably get married. Girl, against his will, maybe. Yeah, Nene. He was not trying to marry her. She's annoying AF. Dude, like, just go with your friends. What's the problem? It's already like 4, 5 in the afternoon, in the evening. Like, I don't get it. This combo's complicated for no. She always does this. She tries to like ruin his life every day. She says, well, I don't want to miss anything fun. Dom says, well, right now I hit a bong once and I'm waiting to go to Kyle's to probably smoke a joint. Kenzie said, is that all you guys are going to do? Is Kyle and Kristen going to Kyle's? I really just want to bring my friends to Kyle's. Dom says, but Bradbury and Kyle are literally pedos. I should just really stop being friends with them. Like, I'm gonna have to just start declining when they trying to chill. Kenzie says, you don't have to do that, babe. I just don't want to miss anything fun. He says, yeah, like, here's how I see it. Kyle helped me, but he kind of weird with that shit. So I'm gonna stay cool with him because don't get me wrong, he's a good ass dude. But I don't even feel comfortable with you around him. You kind of feel what I mean? But don't tell anyone I said that. Kenzie says, yeah, I get that vibe too. It's weird. Dom says, because I feel bad, but like, yeah, he asked me and Vinny if he could F Audrey and said we could both be Eskimo brothers like so long ago. Kenzie says, WTF. Ew. Dom says, I think he said it to Vinny. Kenzie says, hell nah. Dom says, dude is weird. Kenzie says, WTF. WTF. That shit effing disgusts me. I should honestly go beat that bitch's ass right now. Dom says, yeah, like what? I just took it as a joke. I'm still just going to take it as a joke. Shit's weird though. Kenzie says, I don't take it as a joke. You don't joke about someone else's trauma. What? Wait, this got weird. Okay, thank you, Brandy Wine. Thanks for reading these texts. I appreciate the super and I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I know it's getting awkward here. Weird thing to say about Kyle, his best friend. Oh my God, Kenzie, that's so surprising seeing how you text him every second. She drove him to this shit. Kenzie will wear him down with constant demands and threats and tantrums to the point he is too tired to fight anymore. I think that's what happened. Hold on, let me put on my weird moment hat. Yeah. So, what does that mean? What's an Eskimo kiss? Yeah, let's go back. Something about this is weird. I don't like it. He says, don't tell anyone I said that. I don't feel comfortable with you around him. He gives off pedo vibes. Kenzie says, yeah, I get that vibe too. She says, it's weird. Dom says, because I'd feel bad, but like he asked me and Vinny if he could F Audrey and said we could be Eskimo brothers like so long ago. Kenzie says, WTF. Ew. Dom says, he said it to Vinny. Kenzie says, hell nah. Dom says, dude is weird. Kenzie says, WTF. WTF. That shit disgusts me. I should honestly go beat that bee's ass right now. Dom says, yeah, like what? I just took it as a joke. I'm still going to take it as a joke. Shit's weird though. Kenzie says, I don't take it as a joke. You don't joke about someone else's trauma. He knows how I feel about that B word. Dom says, no. Like that, like way before that, LMAO. Kenzie says, def not. Dom says, like before he met you. Kenzie says, then how would you be Eskimo brothers with him? Eskimos when you rub noses just like butterfly. That's what I thought. No, he means Eskimo brothers. Is that what that means? I'm looking it up. Oh, Eskimo brother refers to two men who have slept with the same woman. Oh my God. Remember, allegedly, Dom cheated? They're talking about Audrey. Oh, thank you, Ziva. Yeah, I can ask my teenager real quick. We're all like, what is it? Is it nice weather outside? No, no, it's not. Okay, because Audrey. Got it. Okay. She says, then how would you be Eskimo brothers with him? And how the fuck does he even know that? Honestly, ew. Dom said, who, Vinny? Maybe he didn't know. Look, he was talking to Vinny. I'll ask him about it in person. Like, yeah, I forgot about that. Maybe I shouldn't go. Kenzie? Question mark. She says, I don't know. It's weird. You don't have to ask. Don't bring it up. Then he was probably trying to flex that. Dom says, who? He says, Vinny? Dom says, but yeah, he asked him some weird shit like that. Kenzie says, that literally grosses me the F out. Like, hell no. Dom said, yeah, that shit's weird. He says, what are you doing right now? She says, we're playing Mario Party. He says, that sounds lit. He says, I think we might just not go to Kyle's so y'all can probably come soon. She says, really? He says, probably. He says, we're going to cook some Kenzie says, we're going to cook some pasta real quick. Dom says, I think Kyle is salty. Don't come yet. Kenzie said, Kyle who? He says, LMAO. Kenzie says, why? Dom says, because we didn't go. Kenzie says, what did he say? Dom says, I don't know. Hold up. Kenzie says, I'm anxious now. But we are cooking pasta. Dom says, he was just like, WTF, I'm disappointed. Kenzie says, well, why? I mean, it's right in the middle of the day, kind of a pain in the ass in time. Did you tell him I'm with like 4 girls? Maddie left though. She says, babe. Dom says, okay, me and Kyle pulled up. Tell who? Kenzie says, where? Just y'all? Dom says, no, Kristen's here. She's salty, LMAO. Kenzie says, bruh. I said, I don't want to miss anything fun. Of course you do that though. Of course you go without. Dom says, well, we're not doing anything really. Kenzie says, what are you guys doing? Dom says, just standing here for real. She says, dot, dot, dot. Dom says, we're going to come back soon. He says, are you mad? Kenzie says, low key, but it's whatever. And Kristen and Kyle are just going to leave as soon as I get there. Dom says, we brought it up. She doesn't care. Dom says, so we're going to come back soon. Kenzie says, are you sure about that? Dom says, sure about what? She questions the message. He says, yeah, I guess she didn't want to drink with them. Kenzie says, oh. She says, George Floyd got charged with all 3. George Floyd guy. She says, good day. Dom says, LMAO, F that dude. Kenzie says, when are we gonna be able to come? Like it's late. We didn't even do shit today. Dom says, I ain't do shit either. It's only 5. We're gonna leave in like 20, I think, and we can smoke hella. I'm gonna roll the 5 challenge. Kenzie says, can you just leave now? Dom says, I don't know. Kenzie says, why? Dom says, well, we'll leave in 15, babe. 10 probably. She says, 5. Dom says, damn, maybe. She says, 5. Do you still need me to get backwoods? Dom says, we're on the way back. He says, I got some wild rums, probably enough. He says, do you want to get pizza? Kenzie says, bro, I literally said we would order pizza when I get to your house. I really want pizza. Dom says, from where though? Kenzie says, I don't know, something. She says, Ohio Pico. So are you on the way back now? She says. Dom says, they won't deliver to my house and we'd have to pick it up. And yeah. Kenzie says, I would go pick it up. When can we come? Babe? He says, go pick it up, then come. Grab a couple pizzas, I'll pay. Kenzie says, what are the food? He said, get a plates and napkin. She said, bet. What house? He says, mine. She says, okay. They're on the white cabinets in the game room, she says, at 8:48 p.m. So see how he says my house? My house, because it is his house. It's not freaking, it's not Kenzie's house. He's speaking the truth. Dom, oh, sorry, the comments are moved back. Ohio Pizza is a great company. Oh, he's speaking the truth. Dom must be living in the new house Kenzie's trying to weasel her way in. Yes. Kenzie has huge FOMO. I don't even think it's about the FOMO, you guys. I think it's about controlling him and what he's doing and monitoring him. I don't think she gives a shit about what they're doing or missing out on fun. She's just controlling and doesn't want to share Dom with anyone but herself. You know what I mean? Have him all to herself is what I mean. That's like obsessed, deadly obsession, clearly. She says they're on the white cabinets by the game room. Dom says, did you need to be picked up for Polaris? Oh, so now it jumps to the next day. So she went over there. They probably smoked, had 420. He says, did you need to be picked up for Polaris? Because I didn't leave yet, babe. He says, I honestly didn't think of it. She says, my mom is, babe. Dom says, okay, babe. She says, we need to give her back 10 tomorrow. She says, those R words close the cafeteria. Dom says, what's up, babe? She says, sorry, driving, babe. R took maneuverability cones out of the high school parking lot. Now my mom won't take me to go. I'm seriously mad. Dom says, we can do it sometime today, babe. Kenzie says, how the F am I going to pass this test? Dom says, we just need cones. She's trying to get her license. She says, babe, when are we going to do it? There are no cones at the high school. Dom says, babe, I think I have cones. Kenzie says, you think? That doesn't help, babe. Like, I was going to do it right now. Dom says, I have cones. Kenzie says, but of course, something has to go wrong. Dom says, I don't know if I have enough. Kenzie says, really? She says, 5? I only need 5. Dom says, I know there's 2 at my house, and there should be at least 2 over here. Kenzie said, that's definitely not enough. Dom says, maybe 3 actually. Well, that would be 5. Kenzie said, oh God, there's no hope. I'm just going to have to manifest that I pass this. LOL. Dom says, you could always use a substitute for a cone too. He says, babe, I'm trying to help. She says, I'm telling my mom I'm mad that I can't practice. Then she's like, what? You had 18 hours to practice. She says, I know, babe. I appreciate you a lot. If you have them, please let me know ASAP because I want to go practice now. Dom says, yesterday was 4:20. We should have got it done though. I was about to shower. Can I check after? Because I don't have socks on. Kenzie said, she doesn't understand that 4:20 is a holiday. Like, obviously, I'm not going to practice driving on 4:20. Dom says, yeah, we could have went and did it real quick though. We will do it today. Can I shower real quick before checking for cones? Kenzie said, of course, babe. He says, okay, babe. Then she says, she's not even trying to look for cones. She's literally just sitting. I really wish I didn't live here, babe. Yep, here she is. Gonna weasel her way in. I've never seen so much manipulation skills on such a young girl. It's bad, guys. It's really bad. Mental hospital theory and making sure she is prioritized above all. She does not want him to have any friends. She's just isolates him. Dom was handsome. He was. Dom's like, please put your phones away. Dom had to ask permission to shower now. She says, I really wish I didn't live here, babe. Dom says, I wonder where we could buy them. Kenzie says, we just called the school. They're going to see who took the cones and see if they can get them out there. So I might be able to do it now. Dom says, that's lit AF. She says, babe. Oh, so it goes, that was at 11:13 a.m. Then it jumps to 8:41. She says, babe, please come cuddle. Dom says, babe, I literally just got out the bathroom. He says, my stomach is effed. If it's better for a little, I'll come over. Kenzie says, babe, I'm in bed, really sleepy. I have really bad anxiety. Dom says, damn, babe. But babe, I can't be having to get sick at your house. I really want to come though. He says, what are you doing now, babe? She says, oh, that was at 9:29 p.m. Then she says the next day, I fell asleep, babe. She says, good morning. Dom says, good morning, love you. She says, love you too, babe. Dom says, I'm so tired. Kenzie says, I just want to go to school and get it over with so I can take my driving test. Dom says, oh yeah. He said, that's lit. He says, I miss you. She says, I miss you, babe. He says, I'm locked out of next door. Accidentally locked my key over there. She says, you're effing joking. Dom says, yeah, I left the bathroom window unlocked though. He says, I don't want to climb in though. Kenzie says, I'll literally climb in. He says, if I can't find another pair. Kenzie says, what? Dom says, if I can't find another pair, then yeah, climb in. Kenzie says, why? She says, my mom is so annoying. Dom says, why, babe? She says, do you want to do maneuverability with me right now? Dom says, I'm trying to get into my house right now, babe. He says, I went to the windows. They all have screens on them. And I think the only one that's open is a bathroom one. Kenzie says, we might have to break out a screen. Dom says, I'm going to see what my mom says. Kenzie says, I only have that with that burns my throat. Dom says, I'm ready to just go break the door. Kenzie said, and 2 really nice nugs, so I'm hoping you have more of this weed. Dom says, what hurts your throat? Kenzie says, babe, I can climb over and climb through the window. I can come over, climb through the window, and then we can go practice driving. But I have school today. Dom says, I don't even know if the window is open for sure. He says, so I'm waiting to see what my mom says. He says, when is your test? Kenzie said, this is fucked. My test is 3 o'clock. I'm so anxious. Dom says, did you do really good yesterday? She says, I did really good yesterday, but still. Dom says, found the other key. Then he sends a selfie of her. Another selfie of her? He's sending a bunch of pictures of her. Kenzie says, my little babe, I love you and miss you a lot right now. Dom says, what are you doing, babe? You at school? She says, I'm about to go. He says, nice. He says, you see, I found the key. Kenzie said, where was it, babe? He said, in the couch. Kenzie says, I can't even go practice now. There's hella kids in the parking lot leaving the school. So now I'm going to have no effing time to practice. Dom says, when do you take your test? They'll all be gone in like 10 minutes, babe. She says, my mom is sitting there going, yeah, you can do it. You can do it now. Like, no, bruh, why would I want to do maneuverability in front of my whole entire school? Do you think I want to effing go with her now? Why does she have to ruin everything? Why does she think the world revolves around her? Like, quite literally. You knew this was coming up. Why are you waiting till the day to practice? And we love to see that you hate your mom so much in these text messages. She's diabolical. Get off your entitled ass and find some ding cones. I didn't even practice with cones. Was that a thing? I didn't practice with cones. Maybe I'm not the best driver ever. I don't know. Whatever. I wasn't worried about cones. I was worried about like parallel parking. Is that what she wants them for, I guess? That was hard for me. She says, why does she have to ruin everything? Ugh. Dom says, she's not ruining it, babe. Kenzie says, she's literally terrible. Yeah, Natalie Shirilla. She's talking about you. I never practiced with cones either. Yeah, me either. She says, she's literally terrible. Dom said, just wait a sec. Kenzie says, she literally argued with me. Dom said, till the kids leave. Kenzie says, I'm already home at 1:44 p.m. He said, when is your driving test? She says, 3 o'clock. Dom says, yeah, that's not much time, but did you practice yesterday? Like, are you going to pass? Just like drive like a grandma. She says, yeah, I practiced yesterday, but I obviously want to practice today too. Dom says, you could probably go right now and practice for 20 minutes, but I think you'll pass. Just drive like a grandma. Kenzie says, I just stayed. Should I smoke before I go? No. Why are you going to smoke before you do your driving test? In Ohio, we do that instead of parallel parking here. Oh, that's interesting. Thanks, Alsani. She says, I just stayed. Should I smoke before I go? Dom says, I don't know. Probably not. She says, I'm very anxious. Dom says, I don't know how weed would affect you, but safe to not. Because me personally, I'd probably be more nervous and then I'd probably be a little slower too. Kenzie says, I don't know. It could go either way. When I was doing maneuverability earlier, I was high. Dom says, not sure, babe. Up to you. She says, bruh, my mom forgot my thing, so now I can't take my test. She says, do we have time? F my life. Now I can't effing take this test. I hate my life. We're driving back to my house now. Dom says, what do you want me to do, babe? Kenzie said, if that's all you can say, nothing. Just don't even text me. Dom says, when can you get on the schedule? She says, what the fuck are you even talking about? My mom just effed up the whole test. Now it's 3 o'clock and I just missed my test time. This is why I hate my life. Like, why did I even try? I hate my life. I hate my life. 3:07 p.m. I'm sleeping over tonight. And now she just went the long exit. Dom says, babe, it's okay. You were worried you didn't get enough practice. Now you can practice more and just do the test next week. Kenzie says, do you know how effing booked these tests are? It's not that effing easy. Damn. Like, I'm done. I'm going to have to wait like months now. Dom says, when can you reschedule it for? He says, no, babe. She says, like, I'm seriously about to just drive without a license if I don't get it today. Dom said, definitely not months. Go to Medina or something, babe. Kenzie says, and redo my whole driving school there? I'm good. Dom says, you won't have to redo the whole thing, babe. Kenzie says, welp, now we're back in Strongsville. She says, I'm done trying. I'm counting down the days till I can move in with you. Because they were going to wait till she was 18, but they didn't wait. Yikes. Dang. She says, I'm counting down the days till I can move in with you. Dom says, I did my driving school online. It don't matter where you get it. Kenzie says, if I can't get my license, then at least I can get that. Dom says, babe, it was just a mistake, babe. All she did was forget something. Kenzie said, Parma's 30 minutes away. Dom says, I know. She says, I'm done texting you. Hit me up when you're on my side. Dom says, how am I not on your side? Kenzie disliked his message. Dislikes another message. Dom says, okay, babe. If you want something right, do it yourself, is what I say. And you know what else I say is everything is your fault. Kenzie says, maybe if I effing knew about it. Dom says, so don't get mad at people. So I don't get mad at people. I also say whenever something bad happens, it leads to something better. Maybe you would have went there today and failed, but now you have more practice time. Because who knows, maybe if you fail, you have to do like extra work. Because I know when you're 18 and fail, you have to do driving school. Kenzie says, I'm not waiting till I'm 18. The fuck? Dom says, I wasn't saying that at all, babe. I'm a slide to Jairus. He needs stuff. Kenzie says, I passed at 5:00 p.m. She sends a bunch of emojis. Dom says, what? Past what? It was so glitchy. Kenzie says, my driving test? Dom says, oh, I figured. I know after I FaceTime you. That's great, babe. Now you're allowed to drive my car. LOL. Kenzie says, on the way home. She says, I'm hyped. I had to take an ugly ass picture. Dom says, let me see. He says, I used that hair shit you gave me today and my hair feels soft. Kenzie says, no way. She says, just picked up Meg. Dom said, that's what's up. Kenzie said, it feels so weird driving alone. Do you want me to pick you up? LOL. Dom says, I'm at Jared's. I'll come back in a little. She says, I'm home at 7:13. So she ended up waiting probably till everybody got their appointments in, and then she got hers. So this is when she got her license, about a year before the crash. Why is your mom responsible for your documents? Good question. Dom is so sweet and the only voice of logic and reason in her life. I know that is sad too. It's extremely hard to see what Dom went through. It's heartbreaking, right? Can't stand Kenzie and me either. She says, I'm home at 7:13 p.m. Dom says, I'm about to be home. She says, I'm with Megan and Natalie. Can come over. She says, babe, I don't have any bud. Come over. Dom says, I'll come later, babe. I'm not home yet and I need some food. Kenzie says, I'm hungry too. Dom says, what you want, babe? She says, I want to see you, babe. Dom says, babe, I'm going to sleep over later, babe. He says, or you're going to sleep here. She says, sleepover. She says, I have hella anxiety. Dom says, why, babe? You okay? He said, my mom is making veal, so I'm going to stay for that at least. Kenzie said, yeah, and I just have it for some reason. Kenzie says, that sounds good. Would I like that? Dom says, honestly, yeah, it's meatballs. Let me see if she has to put it in the sauce or not. She's talking on the phone with Chris and Dad. Kenzie says, oh God. Dom says, yeah, it's really bad. Kenzie said, my mom is also making pork chops. That sounds really good to me. Some reason I want it. Dom says, are you chilling with them or do you want to come over? Kenzie says, I am. Dom says, pork chop sounds fire. He says, eat that. Kenzie says, do you want to just bring me a little piece? Dom says, maybe I'll have 2 dinners. He says, yeah. Kenzie says, then you come over. He says, I know, babe. She says, I miss you. Dom says, I miss you too, babe. I'll come over later. Kenzie said, how later? He says, after dinner. Kenzie says, okay, babe. That was at 7:45. Then she says, I'm ready for my babe. Dom says, yeah, babe. She says, come over at 8:52 p.m. Babe. Dom says, okay, babe. I was just about to text you. She says, babe. Dom says, what, babe? She says, are you coming? Dom says, yes, babe. Gotta lock next door and not forget my keys. LOL. Kenzie says, let me know when you dip. She says, I'm just gonna go to bed. I'm really drained. Dom says, should I go do the cell then? Kenzie says, okay, babe, I'm just gonna go to bed. Dom says, okay, babe, thought you were asleep. Good night. Love you. She says, well, babe, I waited 57 minutes. I didn't know. Dom says, what do you mean, babe? You didn't know what? She says, it's okay, babe. I'm just gonna go to bed now. I love you. Good night. He says, okay, babe. Good night. Love you. Now we know she obviously sucks at maneuverability. Yeah, I know. Stay away from them. She got rides. I get chills every time she mentions driving. She wasn't driving at this point on her own. Well, now she is. It's about the drugs for Mackenzie. She says, good morning. I love you so much. She says, I wish you just came and slept with me at 6:23 a.m. Dom says, sorry, babe, didn't get home till like 11:30. She says, from where? Dom says, sales. How's school, babes? Did you drive yourself? Kenzie says, I drove myself. I can stop at your house and get something before I go back to my house, babe. I need Bud. Dom says, yeah. She says, you better be in the shower at 10:48 a.m. I'll be mad if you're just not answering. Dom says, actually, I just got out of the shower and I was getting dressed downstairs when you were calling me. She says, OMG, so effing lucky. LMAO. She says, I love you, babe. Dom says, I'm going to just start not answering on purpose. Wouldn't that be funny? Kenzie says, what are you doing today, babe? She says, no, babe. Dom says, as of now, nothing. Stopped at Jared's. She says, Haley want to hang, but I would rather definitely chill with you. Babe? He says, whatever you want to do, babe. She says, when will you be home? She says, I might get Starbucks with Haley. Dom says, before Chew. She says, babe, let me know what time. Can I drive around for a little? Or you want to hang right now? I can come right now. Dom? Dom? He says, babe, I'm sorry. I'm about to leave in like 10. She says, do you want me to just go drive around for a little bit? I'm gonna driving mood right now. Dom says, no, I'll have you drive us somewhere when we're back. Don't waste your gas. Kenzie said, well, Haley wants to hang out for a little bit and I wanted to get Starbucks, but I also want to hang out with you more. LOL. So I'll just come over. Dom says, well, go get her. Kenzie says, but I need to get gas. Dom says, and get Starbucks. She says, I'm already on empty. Dom says, I'm at Jared's. She says, babe, I want to hang out with you. You can stay there as long as you want. Dom says, I'm 35 minutes away. Kenzie says, I'll probably drop off Haley like 3 or before 3, or even before that. Dom says, okay, then do that. Kenzie says, you can stay however long you want, but I still want to come over now. Dom says he had to leave soon. He says, babe, you can't come over now. It's impossible because I'm 35 minutes away. She says, babe, tell me when you're home. ASAP. Dom says, just got home at 2:08 p.m. He says, getting the mail. Did you get Starbucks? I want some. She says, I'm there right now. I'm with Haley. Tell me what you want. She says, I'm next. And then she says, I'm out. Never mind. You're too late. She says, I can go back though. I told you I was next. Question mark, question mark, question mark. He says, I'm kidding, babe. It's okay. Kenzie says, are you sure? He says, yeah, I'm sure. Do you care if Blair comes and matches? Kenzie says, can Haley come too then? Of course I don't care. LMFAO. Dom says, I don't care. Kenzie says, yay. Dom says, let me run to the bank. Also, help me clean. It's messy. Kenzie says, yes. Dom says, bet. She says, I need to clean my shoes. Dom says, okay, do that. She says, when can I come? Babe, what are you doing? He says, I'm running to the bank, then you can come. She says, when? We need food. I'm hungry as fuck. I almost want French fries. I'm feeling fat food. Dom says, I'm about to go home soon. Food from where? She says, are you hungry also? Dom says, I just ate some pasta. That was my breakfast, LOL. Kenzie says, can I come now? So you don't want any French fries? What place has the best fries? Dom says, I'm not sure. She says, we might go to Five Guys. Dom says, Five Guys? City barbecue? And yeah, you can come. I'm home. She says, so if I go get fries from somewhere, you don't want any? Dom says, yeah, I'm okay. He says, I got a sale to do actually. Kenzie says, okay, we're going to get fries real quick and then come to this daycare dad parked in my ass. So now I have to wait for him to leave. Dom says, okay, I'm going to go do the sale. She says, I'm at Five Guys. I'm coming. He says, what? She says, I'm coming over now. Okay. Your door was just open all the way, she says. Dom says, LOL, whoops. He says, sorry, love you too, babe. Then it jumps to 7:07. He says, bruh, I just tried to fight Blair. Kenzie said, no way. WTF. Call me right now. What happened? Dom says, LOL, we chill. He was talking shit in 2K. Kenzie says, bruh. Dom says, LOL. Kenzie says, I got scared. She says, Bryson hung himself. Dom said, who is that? She says, a kid in my grade. I've known him forever, but never talked to him. Dom says, Bryson? Kenzie said, yes. Dom says, I have him on Snap. He posted, like today. Yesterday, actually. Dom says, that's what Dom said. Kenzie says, no way. It happened. Dom said, that's tough. He smoked bud? Question mark. Kenzie says, bruh, I think. Dom says, yeah, I think I gave him some before. Kenzie says, bruh. Dom says, right? Poor kid. I'ma pray for him. See, that's why you can't stress over little shit. We're all gonna die one day. Oh my gosh. Why is that like giving me the chills? Hey Ginger, happy you made it. Thanks for being here. Please make sure you guys are tapping the like button. Gosh, you ever give him a chance to answer it? No. No, she doesn't. I know we're never gonna use the word babe again, huh? Beebs. She abused him on the daily. Eerie. Whoa. I know. He says we're all gonna die one day. She says, I feel so bad. No one knew anything was wrong. Everyone cares now. That's weird. That's eerie. She says, what are you doing at 8:52 p.m.? He says, chilling with Blair. What are you doing? She says, did you end up going? I got invited to this party. Dom says, no, we didn't yet. What party? She says, my friend Shay knows someone throwing this huge party. Dom said, where is the party? Aren't you babysitting? Kenzie says, I am. I might be able to make it there though. Dom says, LOL. How late you babysitting, babe? She says, 1. Dom says, yeah, if it's still popping, then yeah. Kenzie said, hopefully earlier. Dom says, I'm already tired though. Kenzie said, low key same. Dom says, I just bought I don't know what that is, at Walmart and can't fit it in my car. Kenzie says, call my mom at 10:04 p.m. She says, I'm tired. The kids are asleep. Dom says, Lex is coming right now. If not, I'll have her come. LOL. Kenzie says, WTF. She says, what are you doing now, babe? At 1 a.m. Dom says, he didn't come. We bungeed it. He says, I'm at home with Angelo and Bernie. He says, "What are you doing?" She says, "I'm about to go to bed." She says, "I just got home." Dom says, "How was babysitting, babe?" She says, "I only made 55, kind of salty." Dom says, "What? How?" She says, "I only worked 6 hours." Dom says, "Okay, you should still get a little more." Kenzie says, "Yeah, for real." She says, "I don't know." And that's the end of the 24th. We're gonna stop there because we still have a bunch of days to go, and I'm already like 4 hours in. So we'll continue. We'll finish April tomorrow, and then we'll get into May. I would never I know, we can go on with these texts for days. Thank you, Beautifully Broken, for being here. So I will write down the right page and not go back in 2020 because that's where I started off. I know I wasted some time reading older text messages. Don't come for me. I wouldn't leave my pets with her. Can you imagine being parents of those children and finding out later your babysitter was a girl who unalived 2 kids? My question is, that was wild, and that was just 1 month. I mean, not even a full month. Well, because I started the wrong year. But, my question is, how was she running a daycare with all that marijuana around? Not that I think marijuana is, like, bad, but I mean, daycare/marijuana? Uh-oh. Sounds like no bueno to me. Um, Thank you, No More Yerks. I've been listening while tasking, missed y'all in chat. Thank you, Nemo. That was wild. It gets even more wild. I know it feels like we're making a dent. That month felt like 6 months. There are some months that feel like a freaking year. How frequently the texting is. It's out of control. Yeah, CPS should have shut her down. I'm not saying that anything should have happened. I'm just a concerned citizen. I've been crafting, cleaning, and listening. Yeah, I know. I could go on for hours. We already did almost 4 hours. But tomorrow we have Kenzie members only. And then I'll try to squeeze in a text reading tomorrow. I have a live on Rosie. So hopefully we can do the members only, the Rosie, and then the text message. I know I'm not just a Kenzie channel, like I've said before. I cover a lot of cases, all true crime. I have to sneeze. All true crime cases, but I've been on the Kenzie kick with the documentary being out and stuff. So I'm being honest, how you running a daycare with your house smelling like pack? That's what I don't understand. Thank you, Angel, for being here. Thank you, Cree, Robert, No More Yerks, Liv, Songs by Laura, Kalissa, Beautifully Broken, Crease. Thank you all for hanging out. All the replay viewers, all the people watching from the bushes. Thank you, Melly. Nice being here. Yes. Who's Rosie? Thank you to whoever gave me. Oh yeah, no problem. Have you done any more on the Daniel Waterman case? No, I haven't. I need to do an update on that too. And I'm glad you actually mentioned that, Angel. The Daniel Waterman case, I do have a playlist. I think I've only done one live. But Daniel Waterman also died in a very similar way to Dom and Kenzie. His girlfriend was actually pregnant and drove into a tree. And he died from that. So Rosie is the girl who is best friends with Kenzie in the Crash documentary, the bestie. So I want to do a live on her. Rosie's Mackenzie's friend. Yeah. I have a live on her. Well, partly her, just like her role in the documentary and stuff. So please make sure you guys tap the like button on the way out. Sometimes when the months go on like that for a really long time, I'll split them. So, oh wow, okay. Yeah. It's Daniel Waterman and her name was, what was her name? Leatherby. Daniel Waterman, and it's actually a crazy one too, and I think Leah Mumby. Leah Mumby. Yeah, she drove her car into a tree. Rosie's Kenza's BFF. Yes. So please make sure you guys hit the like button on the way out. If you missed the Steve Shirilla interview that we reacted to and reviewed earlier, please go watch that. It's a whole mess over there. with that. And I will see you guys on the next live. I will be dropping some Kenzie phone calls tonight and posting some clips on TikTok and X. So definitely make sure you guys are following. Yes, Leia Mumby. You've endured these two. You're taking one for a true crime community. I get anxious with the Mackenzie text. Thank you, Guts. This will be my third time reading these text messages. So I think by now, but see, I forget a lot of this. Like a lot of this stuff when he mentions death and like some of the abuse stuff and not like I have kind of it's been a while, you know. But now with the documentary and everything being out, I'm like, uh-oh. And I understand that, you know, there's like a lot of stuff going on here, but I don't know. Some may argue that, you know, this toxic relationship. Melly, you're probably traumatized. No, I'm fine. It's fine. Really, it is. I enjoy going over. I like to, and I like that we have a lot of new subscribers and new people chatting about it. Where are the last texts on your playlist? So I can show you since we're here because I know it can be confusing. People tell me like I'm confused, and I think it's because I have so many I have so much Kenzie content that I know it can be confusing. So if you just go to my page, you can go to I have the jail calls under the video tabs too with no commentary if you guys want to listen to it. But under playlist, um I always do sort by and then do the date added, the newest. Wait, was it last video added? Sorry. Last video added. So there's a playlist right here, the Mackenzie Shirilla case. And then there's the text message playlist. So this text message playlist that has 20 videos is the reading we're doing right now. So that's when we just started in like January or February. And then there's one playlist that has just the calls. But if you go into the actual Mackenzie Shirilla case playlist, you will actually find the prior readings there. So you have to like, it's been a while. It's been a while right here. So we went over her Instagram. These social media files are Instagram messages, which I think we're going to reread again. But there's jail calls with commentary. And then right here, you see these ones, text messages, June 2022, June 2022. And then there is May, June 2022, May 2022. So this is the old reading that we did 7 months ago. So I had already gone through these. You see, April 2021. That's where we are right now. That is where we are right now. April 2021. So if you want to go back and re-listen to those was before, of course, the documentary and anything, but we're currently rereading them in order. So don't get confused, but there's a lot of Kenzie content. We've gone over social media messages, body cam, video calls. We've reviewed the interviews and all of that. So there's a lot there, but don't get confused. Anyways, I know that's a lot of information, but definitely go onto the playlist and you can find everything there. Let me make myself bigger before I shout out to all the mods for being here and hanging out. She was horrid in July. Where are the last ones though? Oh, they're there. They go in order. So from April until you'll get to like June 2022, which we will also go through. We making Melly read them until she has them memorized and recites them from memory. TMZ has a new video. Oh yeah, I saw that, but I'll have to go back and review. Maybe we'll include it tomorrow. I'm really finding more with you, Melly. This is the third time for me too. Thank you, Angel. I appreciate that. Please make sure you guys hit the like button on the way out. And I will catch you guys on the next live tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye.